And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Casey Dynneson. Welcome to the Dynneson Discussions. Tonight with me, I have a special guest. He's been on my show a couple times, but he's never had a show really dedicated to him or really anyone else. This is you're my first official guest, I guess, which is kind of cool.
Some sort of the sit down Dynneson report or something.
The sit down Dynneson discussions. So this is Prince of Queens. He's an up and coming YouTuber. I don't really know how to describe him except that he's the standard kind of. Well, I wouldn't say standard because that's a disservice to him. He does good quality stuff. I would call him anti SJW critiquing of the craziness that's online and general. I don't know. How would you describe yourself then?
I would say sociopolitical commentary from an extremely. The word skeptic is nice. I've been doing this kind of the whole skepticism thing since the mid 2000s when social media was just first starting to blossom, and I did it all over message boards and I kind of had I had my moment of coming to like almost like philosophical skepticism. Was I had a there was a social networking site called tribe.net, and it was based around internet discussion forums, but it was also a it was kind of like a prototype for Facebook in the way that you could have groups as well as just your face and your friends, because MySpace didn't really have groups. I mean, I think they might have eventually, but they not soon enough. But I figured out on tribe.net that a lot of the tribes, which were the discussion groups, they were called tribes, a
Mhm.
lot of them were really weird and culty, because things never really changed that much. Though at the time it was cults that were all kind of based around two things. They were based around the year ending in 2012 and also based around Burning Man, because this whole thing was based on the West Coast. Burning Man, sort of like post hippie. I called it post hippie festival trash
Yeah.
scene. No, not post hippie. Sorry, I post rave festival trash hippie. That's okay, because they were all ravers kind of at that time. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so I I had been like that for a very very long time, and yeah, I like analyzing cultural trends and media, and I was gonna give you. You wanted me to give you the story of how I sort of ended up doing YouTube, so
Yeah.
I'll go back to that. But yeah, socio-political commentary, and I'm a gay guy, but at the same time, I am very very critical of the gay community and the way that people normally are in the gay community. But I'm also critical. I mean, I'm critical of everything, and I think that that's one of the things that maybe separates me, because there, I don't think that there's anybody else on YouTube that is really really similar to me. I mean, there's people that are quite similar to me but are still different. Like, I would say Vernaculus is quite similar to me,
Mhm.
except for he's a little bit more deadpan, and he's a straight guy, and we slightly differ in political views. I'm a little bit more exaggerated in the way that I deliver things, and I make maybe a few more jokes than he does. But
Yeah.
I like the guy a lot. I think he's
I,
cool.
I I I do too. We differ on a lot of things, but I like his very matter of fact way of delivering things. So, kind of what I wanted to get into is just a basic, I guess, a biography of you before you kind of joined the YouTube sphere. Do you want to give us just like a little rundown of
I do, but I
yourself?
just came up with the stupidest problem. My eyes are itching, and I really just want to like wipe my face off with water, and it will take about 30 seconds. Is that okay? Because it's
Oh,
bugging me.
oh, of course.
Okay, sorry. It's so unprofessional. Okay.
It's YouTube. What the fuck are you talking about, professional? So yeah, why he's doing that? Oh Jesus Christ! You know, don't mute your fucking sound or anything. Um, so while he's doing that, I'll look at the chat. There's just one guy there, Andrew Norton. Andrew, just write something in the chat. Give me cancer. Get Base Mom on here for that matter. She always brings that hot sick cancer. I like that stuff. God, I got. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about tonight, but God damn.
Okay, I'm back.
And he's back. Yeah. So yeah, like we were talking about. Do you just want to give a quick? I mean, you already kind of talked about a little bit of the stuff that brought you to this thing, but I also kind of want to know a little bit more about your. Like I think some of my audience want to
The
kind of know
long
more.
version of the story of how I got to be the person that I am making YouTube videos today.
Oh, or the short and dirty if you want to save time.
Well, okay, I think I can do the short version, and then I should do the long version because
Yeah.
I think it's relevant for people to actually really know. Because okay, the short version is basically that I was somebody who had both an actual career in the music industry and also in theater making. I used to be signed on a record label. The label no longer exists. And I also did a fair amount of professional theater work starting when I was in New York. And I was in New York from 2000 to 2005. And I didn't really get paid for stuff that was professional theater work, but it was like I was resume building. And I did eventually kind of get paid for some theater work. Not a lot. Oh my God. But I did do that. And then really what happened, a lot of things happened. There was a lot of contributing factors. I was in San Francisco from the end of late 2007 through early 2015. So almost 8 years. And San Francisco, what kind of happened was that San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley, the whole Bay Area, it ended up becoming unaffordable to live there to a really absurd degree. Where now it's like you can get like a 2-bedroom apartment and share it with a stranger, and you'll be paying like $2,500 a month or something.
Jesus
And
Christ.
yeah, it's absolutely absurd. And like nobody can afford it, like people who work at like ridiculous tech companies. So that started happening, and people had to like kind of move. And really what the problems were very complicated. At first people blamed tech, but it was more complicated than that. I think it had to do more with like weird property development Ponzi schemes and stuff, like because they were tearing down buildings that were perfectly good and building up new condos, and then no one would move into the new condos. And then it turns out that a lot of Chinese corporations and American corporations, they join in on it, but especially Chinese corporations, they hide their money in development projects, because as long as they have it in a development project, they can write it off taxes, because it's not, it's not just their money. It's like it's an investment. So it's a way for them to get around taxes. So but nobody knew about that at the time. Like nobody had any idea. So everybody in the Bay Area, like all these people had to move out of their apartments, or move to Oakland or move to Berkeley when they wanted to live in San Francisco. And everybody just started, and like 85% of the people that I knew that were hanging out in the artistic scene and I was doing work with or whatever, probably about 85% of the people had to move. And so there was this sudden, by the end of 2013, the city that I knew in 2010 or so almost didn't exist. So it was this very sudden change, and everybody got really bitter, and everybody was all pissed off and like, oh, San Francisco sucks now, because it had been like this like glorious wonderland of weird underground art making and stuff, and like all these venues closed. So then the SJW stuff really kicked into gear, and everybody started blaming not just tech people but white male privilege. And so like it wasn't like I didn't fucking work for tech. I was fucking barely getting by. There was a year and a half of my life where I mean, now granted, this wasn't just because I was poor. I had some, some problems, but I was getting by shoplifting Cliff Bars and like buying dollar menu McDonald's. So like I was fucking poor as shit and people knew that. But they didn't care. They were like, well, you're still able to make art, so it must be your white male privilege, and that, it doesn't matter that you're actually good at stuff, and blah 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 blah. You're just a privileged white male, and I'm like, well, I'm not entirely privileged. I'm gay, and they'd be like, oh, what? You think that just because you're gay, you can't be racist? So it was this really shitty situation where I had done so much, and I had done it on like no budget, and I had helped all these people. I collaborated with and I booked countless people, and there was almost no appreciation. Like, so many different people came out of the people that I had been cool with, people that I had booked, came out of the woodwork to attack me for my identity or for my quote unquote privilege. And a lot of these people, and a lot of these people didn't really know anything about me, and it kind of came down to jealousy, really. Like, it was like someone would attack me for my white male privilege and say that, that I was horrible and I wasn't talented and that they were smarter than me. And I'm like, why are you even attacking me? Like, I don't care about you. Like, I've never even, like, what is your actual problem? And then I talked to them for long enough, and it turned out that they wanted to make music like I did, but they, for whatever reason, like, they didn't know how, they didn't have the equipment. But they were like, well, but someday I'm gonna, and my music's gonna be better than yours. And it was like, oh, so you're just jealous. Like, that's exactly, like, that's what it is. You're jealous. That's what this is. And they were like, no, I don't want to be like you. You're pathetic. And blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but why did you initiate a conversation with me about this shit to like talk about my privilege? And then you admit that you want to do what I have done. Like, you're just jealous. And like, I hate calling people jealous. It's like, it feels tacky to call someone, but that's ultimately what it was. And then, due to life circumstances, I had to move home to the city that I am from. And you know uh, I, I was very, very bitter for a while, and very, very depressed, because I had worked very hard and had been successful. People actually like really liked my work, but it didn't matter ultimately. There, I didn't make money, and I didn't get particularly famous. I was well known around the Bay Area, um, but people ended up hating on me because of privilege. And it was really demoralizing. And there was a good year of my life where I was just really, really drunk. And then and then the election started heating up, and um, I was gunning really hard for Bernie Sanders at the beginning, because I was a lifelong Democrat and I'm a gay guy. So it never occurred to me that a Republican might ever be good, let alone Trump, who we had heard all these horrible things about. And then, around that time, I figured out that feminism was this really fucked up thing, like, because I had some really bad run-ins with some really crazy feminists. And finally, I ended up on YouTube. And the first channel that really, really made me get excited was Blair White, because she was a LGBT person that was directly challenging the feminist narrative. And it was like, whoa, this, you can't find this. Like, I had spent so much time on blogs and stuff, trying to find, you know, a woman that would be writing about female privilege or something, or a trans person who wasn't a feminist or something like that, just because, like, I knew that they had to be out there. I knew that there had to be people that thought like me, but it was impossible to find it in blog form or on Facebook or anything like that. Like, it was entirely impossible, basically. And I think that people sort of, I honestly sort of suspect that Google, not necessarily manipulated, but certain blogs were able to, like, okay, Everyday Feminism was able to dominate feminist blogging to the point that, like, if you search for any feminist topic, usually with it on the first page, there will be like 3 everyday feminism articles that will pop up. Like they've just saturated the market so thoroughly that it's like you can't find other types of blogs. So
Yeah,
regardless,
I've noticed that now too.
yeah, it's like so like it's like using Google to search for blogs is almost worthless because the only certain things show up. And so and then there was like the complete other side of the the debate. Like there was like Milo Yiannopoulos writing for Breitbart, but it was like I wasn't, conservative at all. But then finally I discovered the YouTube community, and it was like, oh, eventually I decided I should probably be doing this, but I didn't want to get on YouTube because largely because I was afraid. I was afraid of people figuring out who I was, and I'm the type of person that gets in trouble for my decisions, or not my decisions, my opinions. Um, people freak out on me all the time.
Well, knowing where you live, which is I can at least I know you've said it sometimes on your channel, but you live in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
That's kind of not the it's not the I think people can kind of guess where you live just from that description, but
Yeah.
knowing the place where you'd be, I wouldn't be surprised if you got in trouble. I mean, the same thing happens here, but over there, I would assume just much more amplified.
And people will just flat out lie about you too. Like they will flat out lie. And so I found YouTube, and at first I was scared, and then I figured out that I wanted to write a screenplay. Um, okay, I'll leave that part out. Finally, I got the courage to do it, and I started doing it, and I started with a robot voice, but nobody wanted to watch those videos. But basically, once I started actually using my real voice, and a few people watched my videos, I got a lot of really, really positive encouragement from people that were like, yeah, you're really smart, you're really articulate, and it sounds like you have not just a unique perspective, but a lot of experience with this stuff. And a few people actually like totally wrote me private messages, and they were like, yeah, you know what, I think that you need to get a new microphone, because I had a crappy microphone setup at first. And they're like, I think you need to get a new microphone and get a new change your name, because I had an old boring name, because they said that YouTube needed me, was what they said. And it was like, you know what? Thank you. And
You have been chosen by the Google gods to
um,
go forth and
yeah,
the the
the
patriarchy is calling you.
the skeptics or something,
Yeah.
not the Google gods. Yeah, so it was I got a lot of encouragement, and it didn't take all that long for me to grow a little bit bigger. And then I've been steadily growing, not as quickly these past month or two, but still steadily. Um, but I've also put out a shit ton of videos, and but I would say this: I would say for it's pretty hard to grow in the way that I've done, because I don't show my face. Okay, I'm not a hot girl or a hot guy necessarily. Like I'm pretty okay looking, but I'm not looking my best at the moment, I will say. And I don't show my face. So if you're anonymous, it's a little bit harder, because people like to look at somebody occasionally. And also, I don't make response videos almost ever. And that's one of the biggest ways to really get noticed. And I also don't really get involved in YouTube drama hardly ever at all. So there's certain things that you can do to get noticed when you're smaller that I just don't do. So for somebody who has grown just for sort of having my opinions and saying them, I've actually really, probably I can say that I've been very lucky. I've been pretty fortunate to grow as much as I have. But it has taken an insane amount of work. I make a video almost every day, to the point where like I don't wash my clothes, I don't shave my beard. I'm always working, like literally always working. I can't like I can barely take time off to watch a movie. And I start stop paying attention, and like start checking social media while I'm watching a movie. If so, it's hard work, and I don't know if it's really going to stop anytime soon. The only way it might stop is if if my screenplays get produced and I'm getting attention for that, and I realize that it's going to be a good idea for me to go off the radar with my opinions, because my opinions get me into trouble. And if I am having an influence with my scripts, which are a little bit more coded opinions, like you can't easily detect my opinions, but they're there, then that's a better thing for me ultimately. And I might create a new alias or something, and have a different channel that might not be as popular or whatever. I don't know. To, so that's my sort of my YouTube story, but I can give you my whole personal background in a bit. But do you have some stuff to say?
Well, no, I mean that's pretty much it's a good thing. But yeah, if you feel comfortable giving your some personal background, that'd be I would love that.
Well, I absolutely would, because I think that it would be interesting to you, because we've known each other for a long time, but I don't think you've ever heard this whole kind of story laid out. And you do similar stuff. You do filmmaking, script writing type stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I might be changing careers now just because I got a new opportunity. So
yeah, you mentioned that, but
yeah,
I mean, it's something that you've done, and it's something that
yeah,
you can
yeah.
do. And
I can. We probably experience a lot of the same crap.
you've written a full length screenplay. Just
Mhm.
doing it once is the hardest part.
Yeah,
Once you've done it once, you kind of know what it takes, and then you can write good ones.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Tell your story, bastard.
so here's the thing. I didn't read your script.
Ah, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, I had my parents were not in a good relationship even by the time I was born, and they divorced twice by the time I was 5. And so my memories of childhood, my main memory is generally being ignored. Like that's the biggest thing that stands out. Like I just didn't feel like anybody ever paid attention to me. And I think that that was probably true. Like if I think if you were to look at most people's lives and how much attention their parents gave them, I'd be like very, very in the bottom percentages of that. So I was kind of obnoxious in certain ways, but one of the other things I did was I I I, I don't know if this is something, maybe it's genetics, or I think really just because I there was so much time being for me by myself that I was left alone with my own imagination. And I learned to kind of like cope with by like inventing weird fantasies and stuff. And I know about this because when I was a kid, this is something I remember, and everybody in my family remembers this. I was the youngest out of everybody, and I would make up these stories, and I would tell them to my family like they were real. Um, and they would be extremely like intricate and elaborate for like a small child to have come up with. And I would think that someday I was going to trick them, but it was obviously not true. Like it was obviously like this is just not a real thing. Like he made this up. But I would do it so often that they started calling them Prince stories. They were like, sounds like a Prince story, you know.
Mm.
So I was always like that. And then, like I was in this fucking gifted program, but I was pretty rebellious. And but the one thing that I got into was like writing and writing stories. And then later, but I always also watched movies by myself and television by myself, and I played video games. And um, eventually I got really, really into movies, especially in 8th grade and in high school. And then I ended up working for a movie theater. But at a certain point, I decided I was going to be a director. And um, had also I started seriously writing when I was like 14. I was actually doing kind of like slam poetry-ish stuff. I know it's cringy.
Mm.
But it was something that I got a lot of really, really positive encouragement. Like people were like, "Oh, you're really, really good at this," And both my parents agreed, and I had some really good teachers, and so I was like, I'm gonna be a filmmaker. But I was um I guess I don't want to say smart enough, but I had enough foresight to realize that uh, I watched so many movies because when you work for a movie theater, I worked for a movie theater from 16 to 18. You can see every movie in your chain for free, and mine was the indie film. And I mean, basically, I could see any movie in the city for free.
Mhm.
So, I watched so many movies, and what I realized was, by the time I was, finished with college, I realized I did not want to go to film school. I wanted to go to script writing school because the hardest part is writing the script. Like there's all sorts of people who can do fancy directing, and like there's so many movies that get made that have amazing directing. But it's shit scripts. Like they're just not good scripts. Like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, for example, is like it's all about sort of the style and the visuals, but
Yeah.
it's like just not really a good movie. Like or like something like The Fifth Element would be another good example.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my god, it's just the crappiest script ever. But the only reason people like it is because of the visuals. So I decided to I should do that, and I went to college in New York, and I was supposed to go to NYU, but the direct entry I tried to go for direct entry dramatic writing, and they only let in 15 kids or 50 kids per year, and
Mhm.
I was eighth on the waiting list, so I was number 58. And basically because I didn't have good enough SAT scores because I didn't really ever take math in high school. I literally never took math in high school because I was in a gifted program and I had credits for high school math from middle school.
Oh,
So
you lucky bastard.
yeah, yeah,
Fucking suck.
yeah. I mean, so okay. What else? I got to class, and I went to uh the New School University, which is very SJWE. Like it's a very SJWE school, and but it's a really cool school, and you get they don't have tenured professors, and there's only 15 kids or less per class, and everybody who's teaching you, almost everybody just is a professional in their field. And I studied I wanted to study script writing as my main thing, but but you had to be in the theater department, but I wasn't particularly interested in acting or directing. um I wanted to take as many different types of writing as I could. And then I also had a very big emphasis on studying culture and media, and then accidentally the way that media relates to politics. And what I ended up getting out of college overall was not just learning how to write very consistently and dare I say it well. I can write uh a 10-page essay every day if I have to,
Mhm.
like there's something that I have now with me, which is not, there's not many people that can just do that, like wake up every day and wipe the crud out of their eyes and just fucking write essays,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
So and it's to the point where I can't not do that. Like it's like if I wasn't doing it on YouTube, I would be doing it on Facebook. So um the not just can I do that, and did I figure out how to write a script well, which by the way, if anybody's listening to this and is interested in writing scripts, do study it at school, because you can get if you take a playwriting class, you'll get your classmates to read it out loud.
Yeah.
And once you have people read it out loud, then you get a sense of what it sounds like, and that's the only way to get good at it. There's no other way, there's no shortcut. So uh not just did I learn those things with writing, I ended up taking some philosophy of theater and theater, like political theater type classes. And what I got was this sense of the way that politicians use media and like, propaganda, and how the people use counter media to influence things. And then I was able to like, apply that to kind of fashion trends and music trends, and it just became this gigantic cultural thing. And I started seeing the world in a new lens by the time I was finished with college.
Hmm.
And I felt very grateful for that. It's, prior to entering, prior to going to college, I kind of thought that art existed in a vacuum as opposed to on a continuum, and I didn't quite understand that context of like, why were people interested in one type of music in the late 90s? Like, why was experimental electronic music really big and popular in the late 90s? And then people stopped caring about it in favor of retro 80s stuff. Like, why was that? And by the time I was done with school, I've had a pretty thorough understanding of that, and it does generally stem back to politics. Like, you can almost any trend culturally you can relate to politics in some way, and half the time it comes from the people, and half the time it comes from the politicians. Politicians will directly influence trends. Like I'm still convinced that Hillary Clinton paid off a whole bunch of fucking feminist blogs starting in like 2012 or so, like put me in office 2016 at any cost, write stories that will, make them want to elect a woman, and that woman's me. And
Yeah.
so um but there was this in 2005, after I graduated college, I had this weird experience where I don't want to tell this whole story because it's really long,
Yeah.
but that thing I was talking about with the social networking site tribe.net, that was kind of like the proto Facebook with the groups. um I basically uncovered an actual conspiracy that was the site. It was being funded under the table by Burning Man to advertise for Burning Man. But
Um,
this was at a time in which Burning Man was not supposed to be for profit. They were saying it was a non-profit thing, which is like bullshit. Like, of course it's for profit. Are you kidding?
yeah.
Um, so and Burning Man was treated as a religion in 2005. Like, it was every bit as weird as like intersectional feminism. Like, people thought it was like the absolute truth, was like this Burning Man culture. It was very strange if looking back on it, but I guess, that's the nature of cults. They're very strange. So I uncovered the conspiracy. I figured it out. And I was like, God, this could be political. Like, there's all sorts of reasons. Like, the people who go to Burning Man, not just are there a decent amount of them, but even more than that, they're wealthy and they're leftist. Like, these are people, like, this was during the Bush years, and
Yeah.
Bush had just got reelected. They had every reason to try to like get these people. Okay, so one of the things with the whole Burning Man cult was that they were they thought that the world was going to end in 2012, so they didn't care about voting because voting was just part of the capitalist system that was irrelevant. And I
Okay.
was like, you guys, that's fucked. Like, what the, like, you guys, that's like so fucked. Like, the world is probably not going to end in 2012, and
Yeah.
so like, I was like thinking, I was like, okay, the people who think this way, they're wealthy and they're wasting all their money every year because people who go to Burning Man usually spend at least $1,000, generally a lot more, because like there isn't any attractions at Burning Man. It's all brought by the attendants, basically. Maybe now there are attractions, like there's stages that are sponsored, but for a while it was like everything that was there was built by the attendants. So they were spending a shit ton of money, but there was this whole pyramid scheme where people are getting grants, and like, I don't know, it just seemed
Yeah,
like.
it's pretty much what happened originally to Comic Con. I mean, it really was. You go there and you have vendors, but it was largely a close knit community. You didn't have a lot of these big companies coming in
Mhm,
and screwing with it. You didn't have that.
mhm. So yeah, the weird thing was is that it was kind of like they were trying to get people disconnected from reality and waste all their money. was what it felt like to me, and also like get them fucked up on drugs, because everybody who ended up into Burning Man culture had a drug problem eventually. Like it was only a few. It was only usually after someone would go to Burning Man and have a great time, and then they'd hang out with the same friends that they went to Burning Man with. Within a year, they'd have a drug problem, almost unanimously. Like I used to say, um, if you are talking to somebody who's a raver, either they used to do drugs, they still do drugs, or they will do drugs again soon. Like there's no ravers do drugs. That's just how it is. So um I figured all that stuff out, and I legitimately figured out this conspiracy where there's this whole social networking site that was like actually this like under the table advertising mechanism for Burning Man. And when I figured that out, I kind of had like a mental breakdown, to be honest, and I got really really paranoid, and I probably took it a little bit too far, and like was thinking that it was Illuminati and like blah blah. And when I got better from that, like I was like actually having some delusions and shit, and
Yeah.
I had to unplug from politics. I just had to not think about it.
Yeah.
And because if you start thinking in those terms. Oh, the other thing was that nobody else. I didn't have a support group of people who saw the same thing that I saw. Like my friends, a lot of my friends turned on me, and they thought that I was like they acted like I was some sort of heretic. It was very strange because they didn't have anything to accuse me of, really. Like now, if you go against the intersectional feminist kind of thing, though, they'll
Oh, you're an apostate. You're gonna get burned at the stake.
yeah, but they'll call you a bigot. They'll call you some sort of a misogynist, racist, or something. But if you turned against the Burning Man cult, they didn't have something to label you as. Like they called me a New York hipster as an insult and shit. Like that's all that bad. It's like, oh, congratulations, you caught me. I'm cooler than you. So like it was, but a lot of people turned on me, and they said I was a crazy conspiracy theorist, even though within 6 months of me figuring out the conspiracy about the actual site, the site was basically disabled. It used to be open, and it didn't have any banner advertisements, and they had porn everywhere. And within 6 months of me blowing the whistle, they had to put banner advertisements, and all of the porn and any adult content had to go, and everybody stopped using it.
Well, I mean that sounds like the kind of to anyone listening, that does sound familiar nowadays, though.
Yes, it does. And that's one of the things, like I've been wanting to talk to, like I would love to have a stream with like one of the bigger YouTubers, like
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
and tell them this story, like talk to Computing Forever about it or something,
Yeah.
because tell them the whole story from the beginning, and how I figured it out, and how I exposed it, because it's actually quite a riveting. Like you could write a whole movie about this.
I want to save this part of the conversation for a little bit later. So let's keep going with your basic background, because this is a topic I wanted to bring up later
Okay,
on.
so basic background in from like more of like when I was a kid, or
Well, I mean, you kind of touched on your other stuff, like you mentioned that you kind of grew up, just with your mom mostly.
no, that's not true actually.
That's not true?
No, it's I
Uh,
had a very strange childhood. I've
ah,
probably like the one of the strangest childhood stories that you'll ever encounter. And this is what sucks about it, is that like it's so complicated to explain to anybody, that people hear that like I'm white, I grew up in Seattle, and my uh family like had a reasonable amount of money. They
yeah,
just assume my life is made. It was, oh well, and it's like,
yeah.
slow down,
Yep.
slow the fuck down. Okay, so my parents divorced twice by the time I was 5. The only reason they got back, because my mom was 11 years younger than my dad, and she got married to him when she was like 24 or so, or she wasn't very old, and he was 11 years older. And then she broke up with him, and then she had cancer, and she also had kids. And so she ended up getting back together with him. And then she said that was kind of like not a, like probably the worst year of her life when she was back together with him. So they broke up again, and then proceeded to have a custody battle over me, and my sister, who was 2 years older. So I have a sister who's 2 years older and a sister who's 9 years older, and um they had a custody battle, and it was like this thing where I was going back and forth, and I think it went on for like 2 years. I don't really remember it that well, because I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to get into this whole story because it's disturbing to like, if it's, I don't like telling it, but
Mhm.
ultimately I was tricked into moving over to my dad's house, like literally tricked, like lied to. And I agreed to it when I didn't actually want to, and I was tricked. And so I moved over to my dad's house, but I was very unhappy. My dad, I think I honestly do think at this point that he meant well. Like I at the time I didn't understand like the motivation really. It just seemed like my parents were fighting each other and I was a pawn in it. Um
Yeah.
but I kind of do think there was a part of him that convinced him, like himself, that my mom and my sister, who was older, was bad news, and that it was healthy to get me and my other sister away from them. I kind of do think that he thought that, but I don't think either of my parents were particularly rational. I think that whatever tensions happened became toxic, and it just got to the point where they were both like not being rational.
Yeah.
So by the time I was like 7 or so, I moved over to my dad's house, and I would go back and forth to my mom's house and my dad's house. And the other thing that was fucked up is that I kept changing schools. So um, kindergarten and first grade, I went to one school. Then second grade, I went to some school that was way far away. It was like, I had to get up like 45 minutes earlier just to go to this fucking school, which is, if you're a little kid that's going through a custody battle and, you know, shit like that, it fucking with your sleeping schedule it's not healthy. And so, I had to go to this other school. I didn't have any friends there. I only had one friend really, and his name was BT Veer. He was this little Vietnamese kid. He was funny. And then that was the year that it turned out that I was like way too smart for like elementary school, really. So I got into this gifted program that was 2 years ahead of your grade level or more. So third grade, I went to a different school and ended up there for the third, fourth, and fifth grade. And uh, that was really stressful. I kind of wish I didn't go to that program. I mean, it was the kind of thing where it was like I would have skipped grades if I didn't go into that program, but that program was harder than it was just really hard and stressful because you were with these other kids who were really competitive. Like their parents pressured them a lot, and I didn't have a good home life. I would say like the other kids were like they had a lot more advantages than I did. I just happened to be really smart, and I like could always pass my work without a whole lot of help. And I say that non-egotistically. Like I say that because I wish it wasn't like that. Like it just, for whatever reason, I was sharp enough to like get through these things. My friend that I've known since the fourth grade, he describes me like one of the things he'll explain. He describes me as that I'm too smart for my own good. Like I can, fuck myself over by being able to be clever and get myself into shitty situations that shouldn't have probably happened. So, yeah, all that was happened. And then by the time I was in seventh grade, I ended up moving back to my mom's house again after just some stuff happened. And I was there for about 2 years. And then my mom got really, really crazy because my sister got crazy. Because my sister, who was 2 years older, was like going out and coming, like getting alcohol poisoning when she was like 16 and sleeping with all sorts of older men. And she, at one point, this is the really bad story, but everybody knows about this. Like thousands of people know about this. She went to a science fiction fantasy convention back in the day when they used to be crazy, like they were practically like raves, and they would have them at like these, the type of
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
hotel places where it's like a convention center where they have the big halls and everything. So they would have it at that, and she ended up taking acid, and like she somehow, okay, I think that this is the story. I think I got it right, but I have, Sister Danger was actually there at that this.
Yeah, and so I have to know the entire scenario one day, but she basically took acid and ran through a.
Plate glass window when she was like, yeah, when she was like naked.
How
And
far up was she?
I think it was on the ground floor, so she didn't
Oh,
like
thank
fall.
God.
Yeah, she didn't like fall down or anything. But I think that she didn't understand that it was closed. Like I think she was trying to run to the patio to, because yeah, but which okay, like I will give my sister some credit for um that's probably a more traumatic thing than ever happened to me. Like I don't know if you've ever done acid, but running through a plate glass window, and like, because she had to get like a few dozen stitches up and down her whole body and shit. Like it was like this really fucked up thing. So
See, kids, that's why you don't do acid.
yeah, well, I think people should do acid a few times in their life, but in the
It
right
should it should be it should be in a controlled environment. You should.
yeah, you have to make sure you're not going to freak out, because you
Yeah.
can. And so yeah, it was like my sister was being all crazy, and my mom started, like, I was not doing well, I will admit. Like the place that my mom was living at, I had to get up at like 5 or so, like maybe 5:30, to just because it was so far away from my school, because I was still in the fucking gifted program, and I just wasn't doing well. And my mom, I think she started freaking out, she started freaking out 5 times as much as she should have on me, because my sister was doing so bad. And I think she like kind of like was taking it out on both of us. And it just ended up really bad. And so I ended up moving back to my dad's for all of high school.
Mhm.
And there was no visitations. I just sort of like pieced out to my mom, like, because she ended up being abusive towards me,
Ah.
basically. Like I can honestly say, like, like the way that she was behaving towards the end of it. Well, and it's not even, she had a therapist who was practicing without a license,
Oh.
and her therapist was insane, and she was controlling. Like it was like this thing where it was like, I met with this woman literally twice, and this woman tried to like tell my mom to send me to boarding school. And it was like this woman was manipulating my mother, and this woman's supposed to be my mother's therapist, and she didn't have a license anyway. My dad looked into it, because like I told my dad about all of it, and he was like, yeah, fuck that bitch. And so he looked her up, and it was like, she doesn't even have a license. I tried to, because you can look up therapists and shit. And so yeah, so my mom was at a vulnerable point in her life, because my sister was being so crazy, and I wasn't doing well either. And then this therapist fucking preyed on my mom and got her. I think I think that's sort of what happened, was that this woman is not qualified to be a therapist, right? And I think she was a feminist probably too, just for the record.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that she realized that in order to keep clients, she had to be manipulative. She couldn't be professional. If somebody started seeing her, she had to get under their skin and sort of convince them that she had all the answers. And she, only like, she's like, I think, because she had this very straightforward way of talking to my mom. Like she was very like, you know what, I'm the only one who's honest with you. I'm going to tell you the truth about your kids, blah 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 blah. Because she was like that in front of me. Like
Well, that's a red flag right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, no, this woman was fucked. No, and honestly, like, this is a person that, like, I would, like, if I found out where she lived, I would probably go and throw a brick through the window, just cause. just cause, you know, like you fucked with my childhood in a way.
We
And
we
like
we at the Dennison discussions do not condone acts of violence or
you know,
vandalism.
and I no, and I don't think people, no, and I want to, I don't think people should do such things. I don't think people should do such things, and I want to think I wouldn't do that. But I'm going to be perfectly honest. I would probably do that, and if I got caught, I would do that. I would plead guilty. I would just be like, "Yep, I did it. I threw a brick through that bitch's window." You know, like you caught me. You know, like because of how horrible she was, and not just for to me, but like also to my mom, because the way that my mom treated me, and also my sister. Well, I don't know. My sister probably needed it a little bit. I don't know why my sister didn't go to boarding school, to be perfectly honest. But like yeah, it's a thing that like looking back on it, it was like this woman really screwed with my life and my mom's life. Like my mom feels deeply guilty about what happened, and it made me move back to my dad's house, even though I had been really unhappy at my dad's house. But what was weird is that when I moved back to my dad's house was um I went to an alternative high school, and I I knew that living with my dad, I wasn't really going to get a whole lot of parenting, because that was what it was like when I was little. Like he just sort of ignored me and let me play video games and watch any movie I wanted, starting at a very young age. So I realized that like living with my dad in high school, I was going to have to kind of raise myself. And fortunately, I went to an alternative high school where I had teachers that were like my friends, basically. Like I would spend hours and hours a day in their rooms when they wouldn't have classes, and you know just hang out with my friends and talk to them too, because you know that's what it was like at at my alternative high school. So I had adult figures that were positive role models, which is something I never really had until high school. High school like was a dream for me. I look back so fondly on high school. I
Yeah,
was
isn't that weird? Because like typically, and maybe it's because I went to a Catholic school. I went to a private Catholic school,
Mhm.
and you know, all my friends kind of just look back and say, you know, high school sucked, you know, and I'm like, no, high school was pretty bitching, and I honestly think it's depending if you had a good teacher, because I had a couple of good teachers. Like my philosophy teacher, brother David, was the shit.
Mhm.
I mean, he was really cool.
All of my teachers in high school were at least cool people.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was like it was the kind of school where like you um you the teachers, it was really hard to get hired as a teacher. There was a lot, they had a very high budget, but uh it was because ours was this sort of like weird alternative school for if kids had a high likelihood of dropping out, not because these kids were delinquents. Most alternative schools were delinquents,
Mhm.
and so they gave us a lot of money because our school. Wait, what happened? Oh, Casey is gone. Um, he's back now. Okay, so the thing is that our school.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's raining here and my connection keeps getting cut out, but
Okay,
just keep going.
okay. So the thing is about my school was that um, it um, they got a lot of money, but I think it was mostly just really for the building that we were in and for like renovations and stuff. And the teachers, they were they had a drastic amount of they had to work like you know over 60 hours a week. There was teachers would say that they worked probably over 80 hours a week in terms of like grading papers and like talking to students on the phone and shit. Like there's this one teacher would call students at like every hour of the night because she was kind of a crazy woman. um and so yeah, that's what the school was like. And yeah, all the teachers were our friends, and it was a really great experience. I was actually okay, and this is a weird thing. I was actually kind of favored, not just because the teachers really liked me, like they thought I was smart and they enjoyed me in the meetings. I was very big on the student governments, which the teachers would actually sit in on. The teachers were and the students would have a lot of group decision making. Like we would always every year we would decide together what the punishment would be if a student got caught smoking on school grounds, because they were supposed to go right off school grounds, but we didn't stop them from smoking. We would only stop them from being on school grounds. But kids would always, smoke on school grounds anyway, and so they every year we'd revise what the punishment was. Usually it was washing dishes. Um, so yeah, that's what the school was like, and I realized after I started going out to raves and like doing psychedelic drugs that a lot of my paranoia in life came from the fact that I actually was kind of a jerk. When I was a kid, I had to be a jerk just to defend myself from my family, to be perfectly honest. When I was very little, not just was I ignored, but I was picked on by my sister who was eldest to me. Um, and I was also blamed for things a lot. Like there was something would happen and I'd be blamed, and it wasn't even my fault really, and it was just convenient to blame me because I was little and I was the youngest, and there was no sort of honesty. It didn't matter in my family. Like nobody, there was no sort of like good faith with each other because everybody, like my parents were already pretty miserable with each other by the time I was born. So yeah, it was like by the time I got into high school, I was still a jerk for like freshman year. And then I came back sophomore year and was like, kind of had an epiphany where it was like, wait, I can just be nice to people in this environment. And my school, the people here are actually nice and they'll be nice back to me. And I had came out as being gay and people weren't homophobic, um, to the point where people were actually, I was kind of a protected class because people were so PC, and it was a rough neighborhood, but the school itself was, everybody was like so non-homophobic, to the point where like I could almost be a jerk to I was like I kind of bullied some straight kids, and it was like I kind of feel like looking back on it, one of the reasons that I was able to be such a cunt was because they knew that they couldn't really do anything back because maybe someone would call them homophobic. And I only ever really called one kid homophobic, but I made a really bad example out of him. And kind of uh like everybody sort of hated him, but it was really bad what he did. Like he was extremely homophobic and it was awful. I repeatedly told him that I was gay and to stop making fun of me, and he kept making fun of me and kept making fun of me, and it was bad. And so yeah, but I had a great high school experience overall, I will say. And it totally turned me around, and it turned me into a much nicer person than I would have been if I went to like I would, oh my god, if I had went to the big high school, which is also like in the dangerous neighborhood, there is no telling what type of person I would have been. Like I fucking hell, I don't know, I might have killed myself by the time I was finished. So yeah. Casey. Well, I'm
I was muted for a second. I
mm,
was looking at my questions. So that's pretty much most of your background, right?
yeah, and that's really all that there is to say about really my childhood and stuff. So I have to mute myself for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So what's up, guys? We don't have much of a chat. It's just Andrew in the chat. You know, not giving me a lot of cancer. Why don't you give this to like base mama or something? Have her come in here and just you know, bring that cancer. You know, I thought there'd be more, but whatever. Um, dang. God, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, maybe. Um,
Okay, I'm back now.
Hey, so yeah, so kind of what I got another thing here on the list. And we kind of jumped around my list, but there was something I wanted to really uh talk about was yeah, recently you kind of got invited to an event here in my state.
Right, that's true. I did, didn't
Yes, you did.
I?
And it was the initial thing that I wanted to bring you on the stream for. So, do you want to talk about it real quick? Just to
Sure.
uh,
Yeah, so I am a men's rights advocate. And if I go to this thing, I might, well, no, I'll probably really only be an advocate still because I got invited to a screening of the Red Pill to be on the Q&A thing. And um, it
well, before we keep going, we should probably talk about what the movie is.
Okay, well, if people don't know what the red pill is, I'm guessing most people who would watch this probably do by now.
Yeah.
Um, it's a documentary film about a woman, Cassie J, who used to be a feminist, probably kind of an SJW, but not. But I don't get the impression that she was like a full on warrior. She was just a social justice type because she used to make LGBT. She made an LGBT like marriage. Movie in the past, and she was a feminist, or she thought she was. She didn't really know anything about feminism, I think, is sort of the deal. And she decided to make a movie about men's rights advocates. And over the course of 3 years, she ended up realizing that they're not all that bad. In fact, she agreed with them about a lot of things. Maybe not all of them, because there's a lot of different people who advocate for different issues because there's so many issues. And she decided to stop calling herself a feminist, but she did not decide to go full MRA. Um, at least that's what she says.
Well, I mean, to the feminist, she's she's the worst, of the worst. She's the worst. She's the devil incarnate to
Yeah,
them now. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, the amount of ostracization she got for it, I mean, is shocking because I mean, she faced a lot of backlash. I mean,
and she handled it so gracefully.
yeah, yes, she did. She handled it very well. I believe recently she's been on Dave Rubin. So if
Yeah.
anybody wants to go and find out who this woman is, she can go over to Dave's channel. Dave, if you ever watch this, I'm shilling your channel. You should get me some of that dosh so I can keep the lights on. I don't know, but no, she's great, and you're coming here to
I
kind of
hope
present
to.
it. Yeah.
I have no idea if the fundraiser is actually getting money. I don't. The guy that is doing it is okay. So why don't I talk about how I kind of the guy who's doing it is a gay guy who's an MRA, and he is, I'll say, a little bit more radical than I am by kind of a lot. So
Okay. Why don't you describe this now?
well, I'll just say, okay, one of the things he said to me, which now maybe this makes more sense than I think, and maybe this I'm falsely representing what he has to say because this was in a chat, in just a
Hmm.
text chat. But he said that he thinks that men should be owed reparations from feminism. Which I mean, but I think that there are a lot of specific men who do deserve money from certain things. So I would like to hear his full explanation. He's a very sharp kid. I know he's smart, but
Yes.
he, like his favorite YouTube channel is Bane, and he always like watches every hour long Bane video, and he always watches every Honey Badger thing. From what I can tell, like the usual suspects of definite YouTube MRA stuff he's really into. But he's also a gay guy and he's young. And so me being a gay guy, he liked I knew him before I think I even really started my channel. I think I had made friends with him through some like anti-SJW groups or some shit.
Hmm.
And but I've never really talked to him all that much. Like I've never chatted with him in a hangout. I've just talked with him on Facebook, really. So this is what happened with me. Um, I had some really bad encounters with feminists. Um, Mainly, okay, there was a few that had started sort of infiltrating the bar scene, and like they would sort of like there was this one trans woman who is a fucking lunatic, and she would go to these gay bars, and honestly, I think kind of make shit up. And she started like protesting this one bar. She was protesting this one bar during Pride. This gay bar that's for men. Like it's, I mean, women are welcome, but they are not encouraged
They
to.
are not the demographic.
Yeah, and like that's fine. Like gay guys don't go to fucking lesbian bars, really. And if we do, we're with a few lesbians. Like we're never gonna go by ourselves, or usually even with just one girl. Because there's plenty of gay bars where it's totally fine to bring girls, but the leather bars, the ones where it's like 30 and over and shit, it's there. You're not gonna see girls there, and not mostly. And if you do, she better be fucking cool, and she better know how to handle herself at that type of bar, you know? And
Mhm.
like you can bring a fucking tattooed fucking lesbian with like leather suspenders, like yeah, it's fucking that's fine, but you don't expect to bring some girl in a fucking mini skirt, like some normal straight girl. Like it'll be kind of weird. So this girl is like a trans woman, and she started trying to say that people were like sexually assaulting her and fucking with her. And I remember asking her, like, she was protesting outside, and I was like, were they trying to um
I'm having deja vu here. We've talked about this incident before.
no, I've never actually talked about this online. This instance. This was the only time I ever heard of this. This was the first time I ever heard of it. What I think it is that she was delusional looking back on it. But I remember trying to be like, wait, really? Somebody sexually assaulted you? And because she was trying to, she had this whole flyer, which I took and I read because I'm like, ooh, drama. I'm gonna take a take a look at this, and it was like saying it was like some story about how some man was being very disrespectful and yelling at her, and sexually assaulted her, because he didn't think that she should be in the bar. And when she complained about it, then the bartender just came and yelled at her too. And it just sounded like this like very unbelievable story. Like I'm like, I don't believe, I don't, so I had to go ask her some questions. And I was like, okay, so when the guy was talking with you and he was being mean to you initially, and then this guy who sexually assaulted you, was he like, did he touch you sexually? Because I'm assuming he's a gay guy. Did he touch you sexually, or was he doing it just to fuck with you? And she said both. And I'm like,
Wait, hold
but
on.
but that's not okay. Now you're just not making any sense. And so she was horrible, and she would not fucking leave these bars alone. And it was to the point where it was like she was like actually maybe had mental problems. And I think that what her deal was that, and I didn't know this at the time, was that she had gotten brainwashed with patriarchy theory.
Oh, yeah.
And so and it gets really really fucked up when you mix feminists, patriarchy theory, and gay male spaces, because then they just get wacky and paranoid, and they get very offended that gay men want gay male spaces, like because they think of this as this like the worst example of patriarchy to them. Because if you think, because they think that gay men are included in the patriarchy conspiracy, like they think that the whole world is a system that is designed to privilege all men at the expense of all women, and that gay men get male privilege, which is so untrue. It's so incredible because, like, okay, first of all, males don't like privilege each other. And any straight dude knows that. It's like if you want to fucking be taken seriously by a group of dudes, you have to be,
Yeah, you have to be able to show that you can hang with
yeah,
the fucking dude.
yeah. You're not gonna be given any fucking shortcuts, like if you're a straight dude. And gay guys, if you want to be respected by straight guys, you have to work quite hard. Like they're like girls can sometimes be tokenized by being a woman, and they're like, oh, like we used to call the DJs who would get books who were bad DJ, sorry, bookings. who were bad DJs. We'd call them, like DJ tits or whatever, and but you can't do that as a gay guy in the straight scene, like so and like there's gay bashing. So, it's absurd. It's absurd to think that gay men have male privilege. It's just so stupid. Or any guy really, but especially gay men. It's just so stupid. And
Oh
so
yeah, we'd fuck with we. I'm gonna be honest, with you. If in some communities, we'd probably fuck with you like that.
sure. I mean, that's what like gay guys get fucked with.
Yeah.
It's just what happens. Like it's
Yeah.
it's what I get fucked with on YouTube a little bit, and like not like really, but
Fucking everyone does. It's fucking
yeah,
horrible.
yeah. But there are people that like they're not used to talking to gay guys, like, and they have no concept of the fact, like, because I sound
Yeah.
gay, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I sound like a gay guy. I can talk like a straight guy if I try really hard. You hear it sometimes in my my little skit videos where but I don't want to. I'm a gay guy. I sound like a gay guy. This is how I talk. This is how I identify as the way that I sound. I don't want to sound like a straight guy just to fit in. That's just, I'm not interested in that.
Mhm.
And so but anyway, for a feminist to be so delusional that they start thinking of the world because they're so entitled. I mean, feminists are very entitled people. They think that they should be owed something based on the fact that they exist, and that the woman, being a woman, apparently sucks so bad that they're owed something. And a lot of the time, feminists they hate men. They're straight girls who have problems with men. They end up sort of gravitating towards gay culture because sometimes they end up
It's
towards
safe.
yeah, because yeah, and they go towards lesbian culture, but there isn't a whole lot of lesbian culture because there's not that many lesbians in reality. There's only like 10% of the lesbians that say that they're lesbians are probably really lesbians, and only like 25% of lesbians are gonna like 25% of people who identify as lesbians will actually like be in relationships with women for any amount of time. 75% of people who identify as lesbians will usually in 10 years time be straight, like mostly. And it's just what happens. And I say that because I've seen it happen so many times.
Uh,
And well,
no, go ahead.
um, so these girls get really entitled, and they think the world is messed up, and then they start hanging out at gay bars because at first it's cool, but then they're never satisfied because then they still have this idea that like even gay guys have male privilege, and then they start resenting gay guys because they don't fit in with the gay guys, and because it's like because they're not a gay guy, and it's like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you hang out with groups that are not you. You have to accept that you are a visitor, you know like you just like I don't go to the Michigan's women's festival, and I'm sorry that there's not that many spaces like at bars that are just for you, but there's plenty of like women's groups and shit that you can go to if you want to just be around women.
Yeah,
But
and just as a side note, I hate, and I'm all for there being like, eh, what's the term? It's co-ed. I'm all in favor of there being some co-ed organizations and stuff, but sometimes the sexes do need to kind of separate themselves and be just amongst their own for a little while.
yeah,
They do, and I'm like that, and I can't stand that because recently I was never a Boy Scout, but I don't like what certain groups are trying to do to it because that
mhm.
is that is a kind of typical archetypical
Fucking
organization.
join the Girl Scouts, join the Brownies or some shit like.
Yeah.
um
Oh, the a side note: brownies are cunts.
I don't really. I think my eldest sister was in the Brownies. But so yeah, like the problem is with like I would love it if the gay male community and lesbians and women could mix because I like women, and there's been periods in time when that was like possible, and we would have these really cool mixed queer events where everybody was just having fun with each other and like nobody had any beef. But oh god, swear to God, every 20 years or so, fucking feminist theory comes out and fucking women start deciding that they need to like take over. And it doesn't get to be an even playing field where gay men and women just sort of hang out with each other. It has to be that there's he got booted again. Can tell me when you can hear me.
I'm here. They do.
Okay.
They just want to colonize the space again.
Well, it's not even so. It's not even just that. It's like even spaces that are for gay men and women, and like 6 months ago we were all getting along fine and everything is cool. Then all of a sudden they start trying to police your language and start trying to um make everything all feminist and shit. And like it used to be like, okay, so if you're gonna hang out with gay guys, you have to accept a few things. One of them is that gay guys touch each other. And if you're going to hang out in that environment and you're one of the few girls, you have to accept that maybe they will sort of touch you. And it's not that they're not sexually assaulting you and you know it, but like, okay, like half the like they don't even do it as much as the women touch the gay guys. Women touch gay guys all the fucking time. Gay guys touch each other all the fucking time. So they, like it's just how things are. So if you hang out in that environment, occasionally a gay guy will slap your ass. But usually it's only after you were sort of touchy with him. And women, there's certain women who just they can't handle that. They want female privileges that they normally have around dudes, and they get insecure if they don't have them, and they will start trying to order gay men around. And when they realize they can't order gay men around, they get really pissed off, and then they get into the feminist theories and they're like, oh, these guys are misogynists and blah 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 blah. And that started happening in various spaces. And I feel what really sucks is that like I was one of the first gay guys to sort of like let certain women in. Like it was like there was other gay guys who like had an instinct that like don't trust these bitches, And I was like, no, I like women. I get bored with just faggotry. It's like it's kind of boring to me. So but then these women like it was like okay, and the other annoying thing is that gay guys love women in general. Any gay guy, ask him who his, favorite, what music he listened to in high school or earlier. 9 times out of 10, he's gonna say some sort of fucking like Madonna, Rihanna, Beyonce, fucking, all that shit. It's gonna be some female singer,
Mm-hmm.
Pink, Britney Spears, go down the list,
Yeah.
And it's because gay guys love women, and women can capitalize upon that. Women can start entering the gay scene and start doing like if you're a real girl and you start putting on drag makeup, like very exaggerated makeup and like weird crazy outfits, and you show up to gay bars like Lady Gaga, they'll fucking love you. They'll just be like, hey girl, work, and you will have the best fucking time. And so girls start taking advantage of that, and then they start getting DJing gigs.
Yeah.
Like and this would piss me off especially because I'm actually a good DJ. I left this out, but I started DJing in 1998 on vinyl, and I was playing at raves 1999, and I was headlining at raves by the time I was 21 in like 2003. I actually quit mostly DJing around when I was 21. Right when I turned 21, I could go everywhere. I mostly quit. And I've been DJing forever. I can tear a motherfucker up. It's something that like I can command a big stadium-sized dance floor if I had to, and people would not get bored. So like to have these girls that are like almost, I don't want to say parasites, but almost they use the gay scene to benefit as people. Like it's so easy if you're a girl that is willing to dress up all, like dress up kind of like Lady Gaga or something, not even like Lady Gaga, just like a slightly dressed up and put together a fabulous outfit, and you're a girl. You don't even have to be that pretty. Like you can be fucking fat, but if you have like the right attitude and you put on interesting makeup, gay guys will let you DJ at their club.
Yeah. Well,
And and you and you don't
I've
have to
got
be good. You don't have to be able to mix. You don't have to be able to like transition. You all you have to do is play songs that gay guys want to hear.
Yeah, well, I got a question from the chat. This one's from my friend the NFA, or I mean, her real name's Emily, but I don't know if she wants me to.
Well, it's too late.
Yeah, well, fuck it. Yeah, Emily, get on your account.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
she asked this: does Prince believe there's at least some gay men who truly do have a hatred for women?
Uh, I imagine, but there's very, very few, very, very few, and they would probably be older guys at this point, and it's guys who had bad experiences with women because this is not a new phenomenon. There's been feminists who okay, so this is sort of what happens. Um, there's the women who get involved in the gay scene because they like hanging out with gay men. And then there's feminists who um probably don't really do that. Like they probably mostly hang out in their own little like their little potluck circles and
Mm.
that kind of a shit. But when a wave of feminism comes around, like second wave in the 70s, third wave in the 90s, fourth wave now, the the feminists at the potlucks start strategizing. And one of the things they do every fucking time is try to take over the gay scene. They do it every fucking time. They and it's just they try to take over the world ultimately. Like the feminists decide that they are going to police people's language, and in the 70s they started bullying their way into taking over the entire any like they demanded that LGBT be unified, but then they demanded that they run the show.
Mhm.
And they I think in the 70s the gay men were able to fight them off and sort of be like, no, we're our own people and we don't need to like go by your prudery and censorship. Like that's not like what we're all about. But then the AIDS crisis happened. And what happened was a lot of women, a lot of lesbians and stuff took care of gay men because nobody else was. And I think ever since then, the women had the gay men under their thumb. And because there wasn't that many gay men, a lot of gay men died of AIDS. A lot of gay men ended up living with AIDS for a while. And ever since the 90s, the lesbians have mostly been in charge of the LGBTQ community. And there are some gay men, and they have not done it based on like merit or the fact that they should be in charge. They've done it by bullying. They've done it by blacklisting guys, by lying about them, saying they're misogynist. It's been a power play, and they've brainwashed a lot of gay guys. There's gay like famous gay men who will say that all homophobia is rooted in misogyny, which is like just completely untrue. It's like, oh, so when somebody thinks that a gay guy is a pedophile, it's because they're a misogynist. That's weird. Like that doesn't make sense. Um, so I think that there's definitely gay guys who have had experiences with this type of feminist who kind of hates women because like they just wanted to have a scene, and a lot of them were nice enough to like welcome in their lesbian sisters to their gay scene, only to be stabbed in the back and to have the lesbian decide that she needed to take over. And then if the guy objected and said, hey, you don't get to take over my organization, then the woman screamed misogyny, and somehow he got booted out of his own organization, and now he hates women. And that's because I know that story has happened a lot, like a whole lot. It's happened in several. It's happening today. I'm sure. I'm sure there's instances of this type of bullying, and so yeah, I'm sure that there's and like but without things like that happening, um I would say it is a mind-blowingly rare scenario where gay guys actually hate women. It's just not, because the thing is, gay guys, in when gay guys are coming out, um, you start to come out, in early high school, or usually high school these days.
Mm.
Um, I came out freshman year, and sometimes college, and it's hard to come out to straight guys, and it's hard to find other gay guys. So usually guys come out to girls. They admit first, like they start hanging out with a girl, and half the time the girl already knows that he's gay. Like probably more than half. I would say
Oh,
most.
girls are amazing at queuing in on that shit.
Yeah, well, because it's like horny fucking 15-year-old boy doesn't want to fuck me. Duh, like. um like they start hanging out with
They
a
know
boy.
us too well.
Yeah, and they start, they start calling each other and talking on the phone, and they're like watching, fucking some sort of, like, I don't know, 90210 together in my day. Like,
Fuck, you're old. Good God.
yeah, like calling each other on the phone and watching 90210 while they do their homework or something. And then the guy has all this courage and tells her, like, I'm gay. And she's like, are you really? Yeah, I'm gay. She's like, well, I know, but I'm just making sure, because I want to go, I want to tell it, like, I want to go shopping, like, I blah blah blah. And he's like, have you told anyone? She's like, well, no, no. He's like, well, yeah, only Jennifer and Angela, but like, it's not like they told anyone. Oh my god, like half the girls know I'm gay. Well, they don't know because you didn't tell me, but now they're gonna know immediately. And it's like, well, kinda. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that stuff just spreads like fucking wildfire.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's probably like 95% of every coming out story is something like that. Like, some girl actually ended up hanging out with him a lot, and like she was like, I think he's gay. Like, they might have even spent the night at each other's houses, and she was like, no, mom, it's fine, I'm pretty sure he's gay, like, you don't have to, he can spend the night over here. And,
honestly, I wondered if straight girls just actively seek out gay friends.
oh, they do.
Oh, they do?
Oh,
Why?
they totally. Well, there's a number of reasons. Okay, for one, because there's no competition with him. Like, if like, straight girls have their girlfriends and everything, but there's, like, things can go wrong, and there can be competition. And also, if he's cute, it's fun to hang out. They know they can't have him, but they certainly like to laugh at his jokes. I was like that when I was in high school. I was kind of a fox, and I had all these, like, girls that were
glad to see that you're humble.
Well, no, I was like, you can,
yeah.
you can,
oh yeah, I've seen you. I can imagine.
Yeah, well, I think there's even some photos on Facebook that if you went through my old ones that are like my, from when I was like 17 or so, and
you were good looking.
Yeah, I was. No, I could have modeled probably, and
yeah.
And so I had this, like, I hate to say it, like, gaggle of girlfriends that were like when I worked at the movie theater, like, one time this group of like 5 girls came by, and they were like, is Sam here? I wasn't there. Oh shit, I said my name. And Casey's gone.
I heard you saying. So apparently this gay girls are girls like just chilling out with the gay guy. Just because.
Well, yeah, and also there's a lot of benefits to having a gay male friend. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. I would say very, very few gay males actually dislike women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't finished telling them me getting involved in the MRA stuff.
Yeah. So we got go ahead.
So I had some really bad run-ins with feminism and with feminists, and the fourth wave feminists are the worst. And I think they're gonna. I don't think.
Well, I mean, before we talk about, like, just really get into that, what exactly is fourth wave feminism? Just for so people, because I think most people know, first wave was the suffragettes.
Yeah.
Second wave was like
Civil
women's
rights,
liberation. Yeah,
women's yeah, it came from the civil rights movement, but it mostly really happened during the 70s. And second wave was like when they first started really writing theories was the second wave, but they nobody took them seriously, I think, at the time. But they were, well, no, and actually that's not true. They were getting published, and they were getting praised. And but they weren't in academia during the second wave. There wasn't gender studies departments or women's studies departments.
yeah.
And third wave feminism was what happened when the gender studies departments started existing. Somehow, what I always imagine is some fucking crazy feminist theory author, some fucking bitch that writes some weird shit where she tries to say that all sex is rape or whatever,
some Dworkin's disciple or some shit.
Yeah, somebody like that. They hold on. I'm drinking now.
Yeah.
One of these bitches was a graduate student at a university, and there's a lot of grad students out there who maybe you've run into this type of person before. They're not really a scholar, hardly. Like, they're mostly a professional activist, and they're probably a fucking pain in the ass to the dean all the time. Like, the dean just wishes this fucking woman.
Yeah.
But if the dean,
the archetype of this would be like, if anyone's ever seen the South Park movies, it's fucking Kyle's mom.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah, who I love to include in my videos, just a little what? Yeah. So yeah, there's these fucking people, and it's like, what's your graduate degree in anyway? Comparative theory, English literature theory. It's like, what are you, but she's like never even really working on her actual scholarly work. She's mostly organizing activist protests on college campus. They're always protesting the dean themselves. And so the dean should probably expel the bitch because she's not actually like doing anything. But he can't, because if he did, she would form some big protest because she already has some like activist following. So it was probably one of these women who was a pain in the ass. And she was like, well, I'm going to major in women's studies. And he was like, what the fuck does that even mean? Is that like some sort of like studying biology? No, because biology is just a tool of the patriarchy. It is my own it is my own major. It is something that I have written myself. And it's like, well, is it legitimate? Yes, it's legitimate. Are you questioning? And he's and the guy just was like, okay, either I let her have her way, I'll let her get a PhD with this shit and start teaching, because otherwise she'll be a pain in the ass, And
you know what the sad thing is? I think you're kind of onto something with that.
It has to be.
Like, no, there's no way. There's no way that like a real academic. You know what I think it is? I think it is that people. I think people. No, I'll give my theories some other time, but because I want to do an entire stream on where education's gone in the past like 30 years, because there's so many problems. Yeah. There's so many problems with it, and it boils down to some core tenets. But let's keep going on.
It was already dying by the time I got to school, because we already have the internet and things. Okay,
but like, what's fourth wave feminism?
So yeah, third wave feminism was what happened when it finally got solidified in academia, and then the theories really started to ferment and turn into a potent potion, but it was mostly undercover. Like, third wave feminism had a few ripples into mainstream culture. It went as far as the Lilith Fair, which was a music festival with all the 90s Sarah McLachlan and Melissa Etheridge and shit like that. Who now just probably
I can't get that song, that fucking "Come to My Window" song out of my head now.
Yeah, that's a good song. but third wave feminism. So okay, third wave feminism was when feminists when okay, so like patriarchy theory had already been around since the 70s, but third wave feminism was when they started kind of inventing a, it was like more calculated on how feminism was, when it really kind of became a more solidified religion that had subdivisions. Like there was intersectionality that tried to make it that feminism was the way to save every type of person. And rape culture, I think, came from, no, actually, when did rape culture come in? I think it came from this third wave. I don't remember.
No,
Um,
I think rape culture is kind of during the intermediary period between the third and the fourth wave.
it,
And that
it
I
might
you
have
know
it might have been because I I didn't really remember hearing about it until right before the fourth wave. So, um, but yeah, okay. Like the third wave was mostly really happened during the early '90s. It started, they say, in the late '80s, but it mostly happened during the early '90s, and was still going all through the end of the '90s, but not really. Only, and there's a few places where feminism never dies. It's kind of like house and disco music. Like, it never dies in Chicago and in New York City.
yeah.
There will always be a club in New York City that you can go to hear disco and house and any music that sounds like that. And so like feminism is like that, but it's kind of like the places they don't die are Olympia, Washington is one of the worst places because it's the state school of Washington is there, and that's actually sort of where third wave feminism, that was like the capital of third wave feminism. Um, but third wave feminism, one of the distinct differences about third wave feminism was it's not all of it. Now there was like some really awful third wave feminists that were like trying to say that, teach men not to rape, don't train women not to do self-defense, blah blah blah. But not all of them by a long shot. There was a lot of women that were like really stoked on women's self-defense, and like I remember in the '90s, I was friends with these like lesbian feminists, and they would have like women's self-defense classes at high school, and it was like this big deal, and they'd get really into it, and you know, um, that was just how things were then. They and now I never hear of women's self-defense classes
I
ever.
mean, it's no. This is what I don't get, and this is I will take full. It's the product of millennials being millennials.
Mm.
And I don't like to you know what, fuck it, I don't care, but it really is the product of my generation the way it is. There's not a lot of you're
Violence.
well, no, it's not that. Well, there's a
Well,
lot
I
of
know it is. It is a lot less violent now than it used
uh
to be.
well, yeah, well, thank God for video games, but but no, but seriously, it's I think it's honestly because we're not really forced to take responsibility for a lot of our own safety. I
Mm.
think I think we are kind of sheltered in that way. But as far as what like when it comes to female self defense, maybe it's the way that kids are raised nowadays. But we're not and maybe I'm different. Maybe it's because I learned that the world was not a very safe place very early on. Bullies are a thing. You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
would
hard
say
to
okay.
articulate.
I would say the biggest difference between third wave feminism and fourth wave feminism
Yeah,
is simply that third wave feminism was still a countercultural movement. It was still the fringes. Now, these people were loud and obnoxious, and they still tried to police people's language, and like held their little protests, and they made an impact. They severely annoyed people, definitely. And I remember them. Like I fucking remember, they were some of them were in high school, and even in my college there was some of them. And like there was the cool ones who were like kind of feminists, but mostly just because they were lesbians, and that was just sort of what you were supposed to do, and they were my friends, and it was like, well, yeah, let's face it, if four of us are walking down the street together and only one of them is a dude, he's the one that's going to get beat up, and they would admit that, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas like a real feminist would be like, no, no, we would be the ones because, you know, and it's like, no, 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 like people attack men, they don't beat up women.
Well, I mean, you just got to look at the crime stats to see
Yeah,
who is the which demographic out of the two is most likely
yeah.
to be murdered.
But you know, but the feminists, they have this, you know, this idea that females are always the victims, and they were like, yeah, but we'll get raped, and it's like, but that happens very rarely. Like the random street rape, you know, some dude with a knife, you're walking home by yourself and some dude decides to actually fucking rape you. I know it does happen, and I know it's not a good idea to, you know, and if it doesn't happen, you can get followed and harassed, and that's really shitty. Like, but like at the same time, like they like my the cool friends knew that it was so much more likely that something would happen to me as a gay guy, and they admitted that. But then there was some feminists that would just be like, it was like all about them always, you know, and you could tell, and that was always that's always been kind of a thing. But those were a small minority. They really were a small minority. Well, what happened with fourth wave feminism was that small minority who got, you know, completely brainwashed during the third wave. Well, they all had to go away during the Bush years.
Yeah.
It was like they all had to go. The Bush years, like, you very vaguely remember the Bush years because you're like
I'm
you
22, so
yeah. So you were like when Bush was put into office, you were like 5.
oh no,
No, you were born.
I was
No.
94. It was 94, so it would have been like 6 or 7.
Okay, 6 or 7. Yeah, okay. Um when you first remember watching television, there was all sorts of politically incorrect humor, like on Comedy Central and shit. Like you would see the Sarah Silverman show
Mhm.
or South Park, which granted, South Park has always been politically incorrect and it never went away. But like the Bush years was savage.
Oh,
Like
they just ripped into that motherfucker.
it was, well, yeah, they ripped
And
into
it was everyone too. Like
yeah, everyone. Nobody was safe during the Bush years. Like Vice magazine was huge, and fucking like they had the do's and don'ts, and like it was. I remember looking. We were looking at the do's. Did you ever read Vice magazine back in the day? Because it was so much different than it is
you
now.
know, I vaguely remember getting articles for it during, you know, when I was coming up for like middle school and stuff. I do remember going to Vice a lot just because they had good, you know, articles and stuff. So
Yeah, well, Vice was really cool and really funny back in the day, and they do, you know, this the kind of like the weird investigative reporting, just stuff that nobody ever knew. Like I remember they blew people's minds because they did a research about the history of circumcision,
mhm.
and it was this big thing sponsored by Kellogg's because Kellogg's wanted men to stop masturbating, and it was weird. It's like because the guy was a fucking freak, and he like, well, I don't know, dude. So Vice, and because it used to be Gavin McInnes's thing, like that's what made Gavin
Yeah,
McInnes.
Gavin was, I think he was the co-founder of it or one of them.
Yeah, he was
And
one of the co-founders, but I think he was the one who wore the pants. Like I think
oh
out of
yeah,
all of them.
oh yeah. I mean, the way a lot of people talked about him back, like I was trying to because
He
I
was a rock star just by editing that fucking magazine.
yeah. I mean, he was damn good at it, and I think he's still good at it. I wish he would go back and do his own solo shit nowadays. But you know, yeah,
Well,
he's good at
he
it.
has bills to pay now.
Yeah,
So, but like he like back in the day, it was fucking like it was like too savage sometimes. Like it was like they couldn't interview a band without making fun of the band. Like even if they thought that they were cool, they would like make fun of the band. And then like they had the do's and don'ts where they would take pictures on the street. Um Sometimes it looked like random, and usually it would be like, and even the dudes, they would sort of like make fun of the person. Like it would be some girl with a fanny pack and like curly hair, hair and like, well, because that's what everyone was wearing,
I know.
like, yeah, at the time. And like, you know, like she'd have, you know, spandex on and be like, they'd be like, you know what? If she wasn't so goddamn hot, she'd be like a fucking Richard Simmons extra, you know, like they're like, yeah, she looked like a Richard Simmons extra. Kudos to her. You're pulling it off, but just barely, you know, because we can see some skin or so, you know, like that's, they say something like that. And then they'd have a don't. One of the don'ts that I remember, it was like some 12 or 13-year-old Asian boy, like some kid, and he was like chubby, and he's wearing, it looked like a private school uniform, and he's walking, and he was like reading while he's walking. I don't know. I really hope that they asked for permission to photograph him because it didn't look like they did. And it said something to the effect of, "Oh God, look at this little doughboy." I bet that, you know, if it got really cold, his penis would totally just like shrivel up and turn into a vagina.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and it was
Jesus
in a
Christ.
fucking, it was in like a magazine. It was like,
What happened, man? What happened to us?
no, and it was weird because like during that time, it was like people considered me PC at that time, but really what it was like I didn't appreciate people calling me faggot on the internet as an insult when they were actually being homophobic.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, what? Like, what do you think I fucking like? Oh, you're just a stupid faggot. Like, okay, that's not related to what we're talking about. Oh, shut the fuck up. I hope you get gay bashed. I'm like, what? You're gonna do it yourself? What? What? You want to meet up? Fuck you. You know, like, and then like that, and then people be like, oh, you're so PC. Oh, it's so easy to get under your skin. It was like, no, like, don't fucking talk shit to me like that. Like, fuck you. And that was being PC at that
You know,
time. You know,
I
like,
think what I find, because we're talking about like the whole early 2000s stuff. That's kind of when like 4chan and shit really started to pick. I mean, 4chan's been around for like maybe, God, 15 plus years now. It
yeah,
started.
but I think it started getting big in the late 2000s.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up kind of early on it. I was also, um, I don't know if I visited SA before, but I was really raised on the internet, and you can be such a fucking bastard on the internet,
Yeah, it
and
wasn't hard.
oh, it's so, and you know, this is gonna come off as terrible, but it was fun. It was
Mhm.
fun to talk shit to people because I could just yell at Koreans,
Mhm.
and they could yell back, and we just talk massive shit, and then we would just devolve into having a very civil conversation over anime, and you know, which is the better, which better, Robotech or fucking Gundam. That's honestly what I loved about the internet, and the whole political, but I just don't get where the whole political correctness
Well,
switcheroo
it
happened.
was something that completely it was weird because like the people who were cool, like I was one of the people that was, I guess I was then what I still am now, where I can walk the line between both worlds pretty well. You know, like that's what people say about my YouTube channel. Like my like if anything I can give myself credit for, I know how to make a video that anti SJWs will potentially at least be able to watch and be like, yeah, this guy's cool. You know, they might not agree with me about everything. They might find me kind of boring, but they'll at least kind of think I'm cool. You know, they'll be like, they think I'm a good guy. And SJWs can watch it and not be triggered.
Hmm.
You know, they can be like, well, I don't agree with this, but they're not going to sit there and be like, oh, this guy's a fucking white supremacist. They'll be like, you know, like with Blair White, they can sit there and be like, this is a trans misogynist, self-hating, racist. You know, like they can do that with her. But with me, they have to try really hard to find to find some objection, you know?
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that maybe I haven't had a hit piece yet because you
Oh,
know,
it's coming. It's
uh,
fucking coming, man.
yeah, there, yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
my,
oh
you know, but they better fucking try really hard because whoever fucking writes that hit piece when it finally comes out, I will rip them to shreds. I will fuck. Oh my god, whoever's dumb enough to write a hit piece, like I already have. One of the guys that I know from YouTube is somebody who's done research for some pretty big names, and he is really good at going onto the source code from web pages, figuring out who puts them together and blah 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 blah, like finding connections, dotting lines, that kind of a guy. And he helped me out with my. Did you watch my Pop and Ollie video that I did?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see how intense the research was with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't do that alone. I have people that have liked, like I like to come up with conspiracy theories, but I don't like always doing the research. I get tired. That gets tiring to me. But I have at least one friend who is really into doing the research and not really so much into like making videos and stuff. So he said, anytime I need him, he's there. He'll get to it. And so if anybody tries to do a hit piece on me, like I will find everything I need to know to take them apart piece by piece.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, I will find out who's paying you to do this. I will find out who you are, and I will find out at least 3 ways in which you are a hypocrite. So I don't know. I welcome that hit piece if it is going to happen.
Well,
game on.
Well,
Shots fired.
Well, dude, I mean, I think this is a good transition to something else I wanted to touch on with you, because have you been noticing that the balls on the media in general going after really big YouTube names? Like, I mean, I think it's been talked to death, but they went after PewDiePie.
Mm-hmm.
They went after the YouTuber. Like, I mean, what's his YouTube count? What's his sub count? 50 million?
Yeah, it's like 55 million or so.
Jesus.
There's a lot going on with this, and okay, I think that it was a situation of the mainstream media's last gasp for air of relevance, and it was bark more than bite. Ultimately, they did what they can, and they didn't do all that much. They did fuck with him a little bit, but ultimately, whatever.
I don't think it's just him though, because
They're trying. They're trying, but like, if that was the media's big show of force, they haven't really done anything.
I know.
And
I'm what blows my mind though is the abrasiveness of it, like the sheer fucking balls.
Well, you have to understand the people that are journalists today, they're not journalists. They are teachers' pets. They're glorified teachers' pets. They aren't successful because they're curious, because they're good writers, because they're hardworking. They are where they are today because they're obedient. They write what they want, what people want them to write. So these are people that somebody told them over and over and over, just write good about Hillary, just peddle feminism, Hillary, and hit pieces about anybody that says otherwise. That's all it was. That's all it was. And then they're like, you'll be rewarded as soon as she wins. As soon as she wins, you'll be in the promised land. Everything will be fine for you. You're going to be a made guy. Like that's what they told all these people. And when it didn't happen, they were like, no, but this can't happen. This can't be. This we were told. Well, it happened. Sorry. No, but this can't happen. We have to win. No, we have to win. We have to get Trump out of office. These people who beat us, these alternative people, they have to go, because they panicked, and this is them panicking. And
well, I think I think you're on to something about that, but I also think YouTube, because this does fit into it. Because we were mentioning early before we got onto this, YouTube fucking things up.
Yeah.
And my fear is YouTube is starting to sanitize itself in order to appeal this. Yeah, go ahead.
This is what I think.
Yeah.
I actually am starting to be more optimistic about it. I have a friend that works in YouTube advertising.
Mm-hmm.
I should talk to him. I should try to get him on the phone or something because I want to. He's probably scared to talk to me at this point, and he just had a kid like a few months
Yeah.
ago, like his first kid. So, um, but uh, I'm more optimistic about it than other people, and the reason why is that YouTube could have already gotten rid of a number of channels, more than they did. They did some fucked up shit, but I am imagining that the channels that they took out actually had things that according to their little guidelines um were violations, and they probably got enough complaints, and if you okay, and the other thing I imagine that a lot of people probably don't think about is that there's probably a lot of people who work at Google and YouTube who are arguing about these things in meetings. And there's people saying, no, but we have to let these channels exist. We
Oh,
have
oh,
to.
there, my thing is though, what I'm starting to kind of get the suspicion of is that I get what you're
No, no,
saying.
I want to tell you. No, I want to tell you
Go, 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 go,
how it is actually, I think, working.
yeah, go
This
ahead.
is what I think it is. The politicians were telling YouTube that Hillary Clinton will win. Period. They were presenting them with data, and they had definitely given bias to Democrats and blah 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 blah. The
Oh
same
yeah,
the same the same bias that every media thing had, and YouTube had a bit of that too. The company did too, and they everyone was just assuming Hillary Clinton will win. That's what everyone thought, and then when it didn't happen, then things got really really crazy, and nobody knew, you know, which way was up anymore. Now it's gotten to the point, and then they tried way too hard to they tried altogether way too hard to overturn the election. They were like, well, maybe we can get the electorates not to vote, and then maybe we can get the recounts, and maybe blah blah. That didn't work, and they shot their wad. They
yeah.
they failed, and it made it was very clear that they wanted to steal the election. They would steal this election if they could. Thank God they didn't, and it became clear to everybody. It was like, oh, you are trying to steal this election. Like, it's like you probably already tried and you failed at every turn. And now what it's got, and now this is what I think it's gotten to be. Google has to completely rethink a lot of stuff. They have to completely rethink their political alignment, and they have to completely rethink their profit margins, because I'm sure Clinton Incorporated had them on their payroll and was like, yeah,
Oh, well,
Google.
I mean, well, they definitely did. They
Yeah,
had,
yeah, 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 yeah. So that was the case, and they were like, yeah, we're paying you, and when we get into power, we're going to pay you even more, and that didn't happen. So now they're having to recalibrate, and they're having to refigure out their finances. A lot of people are probably going to get let go from Google. A lot of people at Google over the next couple of years are going to lose their jobs. And Google has campuses in multiple different cities. They're in Silicon Valley outside of San Francisco mainly, but they're also in New York, and they're also even in Portland, Oregon, and I think in Austin, Texas, and a lot of places. Maybe
Mhm.
even Oklahoma City, I think I heard. And so now they're having to like recalibrate, and it's a very confusing period. And that's what a lot of this YouTube stuff, that's what a lot of this, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah, hello, are you back?
oh, yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they're having to recalibrate.
they're having to recalibrate everything with their and and be like, okay, so we're actually probably going to have to make all our money with ad revenue, and we're going to have to figure out what's advertiser friendly and what's not. So some of the problems that channels are having probably actually legitimately has to do with that.
Well, no,
And with just simply with simply being like, okay, we need to make sure that this is advertiser friendly. We need to book because they actually care more about their advertising a little than they used to. So that's some of it. But the other thing that's probably going on is that these Democrats, these corporate Democrats, are snakes, and they will not go out without a fight. They will hold on to every bit of their power and try to fight for more every step of the way because they are a corporation that's set up like a crime family. So they will do every cheap tactic in the book. And so what they're probably doing, this is my theory, and this is where it makes it less nefarious from Google's end, is that and I should make a whole video about this, because if I make this video and somebody at Google or YouTube sees it and they're like, oh my God, thank God somebody gives us the benefit of the doubt, they might reward me handsomely with subscribers again. Like I might start, getting triggered in the algorithms, because I have been shafted recently. And this is that what I imagine the Democrats are, at their weakest, but they still have money. They still have
yeah,
some money. So what they're doing is they've concocted an elaborate way of lobbying various advertisers to try to silence alternative media. And what they're doing, instead of lobbying Google, because they don't have power over Google anymore, Google does not have to listen to them. Google can say fuck off. Like Google is almost as powerful as Trump, maybe more powerful. They don't have to listen to the fucking shitty Democrats anymore. But the Democrats have money, and they can go around to every individual advertiser. The example I used is, let's say it's a cereal guy. Let's say it's the CEO of Kellogg's, right?
Mhm.
They and there's a lot of these CEOs that work with YouTube. This is a guy who's really busy. He has to deal with the FDA. He has to deal with advertisers on the box. He has to deal with the factories. It's a very, very busy guy. And the Democrats, these fuckers, and they might even disguise themselves and pretend not to be Democrats. They might have some little sock puppet organization. We're the organization for concerned Christian parents, but they're really Democrats,
yeah.
and they call the guy up and they say, there's some horrible content on YouTube, do you have a meeting? And he's like, well, in 2 weeks I have an hour free that I can meet with you. And they're like, okay, fine, we have some very disturbing stuff to show you. And they come in and they bring a few PewDiePie videos and some Paul Joseph Watson and stuff, and they're like, these people are literally Nazis, and your advertising are showing up on them. You need to call YouTube, and here's a list of the worst YouTubers, and here's a list of the topics that they talk about. When they refer to social justice warriors, what they really mean is racial minorities and women. That's just code word for anybody who isn't a white man, and blah, 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 blah. So you have to call YouTube and complain about all these channels and complain about anybody who talks about social justice warriors, because that's bad. That's Nazis. And this guy is probably like, well, these people are so concerned about it, I'll give that call. They do that to enough different organizations, and Google gets enough different calls, and these guys probably don't even really look into it. Like, these are probably advertisers that um you know they're just taking somebody at their word that this content is offensive, because they kind of looked at a few clips, and and they got enough calls that Google is penalizing us. But ultimately, our channels would already probably be gone if Google wanted them gone. So I think that it's just some tricks.
I got what you're saying. It's
Yeah,
basically just them sanitizing their work in order to kind of appear more friendly to advertisers.
yeah. Well,
It
and because of an elaborate operation of tricking advertisers into complaining. When I bet, honestly, ultimately, I bet it's going to be probably in 6 months' time. It's gonna be smoothed out, because YouTube, yeah, they're gonna want to transition to like um to be more sanitized for the YouTube TV shit, blah 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 blah. But ultimately, there's a lot of money to be made from the Paul Joseph Watsons and the
Yeah.
Sargon of Akkads of the world. I mean, we're talking like millions and millions of dollars of ad
Well,
revenue every day coming from certain channels that are supposedly objectionable.
yeah. Well, my thing is, well, I mean, you got to look at, and I like, if for I'm gonna plug another little YouTuber that I like, called Sticks Hexnammer 666.
He
He's
was paranoid. I watched that video you posted. I like him all right, but his version was a little bit. I think he was taking it too far. He needs to spend more time talking to people and not just talking to himself. I think.
yeah, but no, I mean,
I like him. I like him though. He's a very smart
yeah,
guy.
yeah. My thing with him though is I understand his I understand his apprehension. I don't trust. At the end of the day, look, these are corporations. But I am I'm going to plug him on this because he's sort of right, but he's also sort of
What
wrong.
was his conclusion? I didn't get to the end of his video.
Well, the conclusion is that they're basically sanitizing it like anything else was, and we probably should push back on this.
Yeah.
And but my further point is he's made a couple of videos about the decentralization of news. I mean, let's be honest. Where do you get most of your news now? For me, it's not the TV. It's mostly I get the news from YouTubers and stuff. People can ask, oh, that's not necessarily the greatest idea. Well, I can't trust corporate media now, and I can barely trust the alternative stuff. So I have to go to places where I've watched for years, and they leave sources in their
Mm.
they leave sources in their videos,
Mm.
so I can get that at least. But I think that's the appeal now, is that the less power that the mainstream corporate news it has, the more I think the more incentivized I think certain parties at YouTube and Google at large are gonna really want to stop doing what they're doing currently. And if they don't stop the sanitization within the next couple of months, I have nothing. I can't assume anything. It's other than ideological reasons. I can't. I mean, it would be business wise, it'd be suicidal to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's what it is now. They're having to just, but I think what is really probably going to go on is that not so much that they are trying to stomp out certain things because the message has gotten out. You know, um, enough people have been red pilled. It's too late. You know, and so ultimately, I think what they're doing is recalibrating their advertising and their ideology and like what do advertisers want, what do they not want, and it's going to be a process. And
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to end up, but I I don't think that I don't think that every channel is going to get nuked. I really have a hard time, but of course, I've always been extremely unlucky in such things. So knock
I,
on
I,
wood.
yeah. I would simply say this, that um, to anyone that's on the YouTube that ends up watching this, just keep an eye out. If you see some shady shit, let people know. Don't just keep it to yourself. Like, I'm not saying go look for stuff, but just stay vigilant to this kind of crap, because
I had two things I had a video demonetized today that was, but I'm not surprised. It was like
can I ask you what it was about?
two. Yeah, well, okay, one of them was weird. It was 8 reasons why I like the word cunt, which is not surprising. That's not the surprising one. But the other one, I don't think I requested monetization. Maybe I did for a while, and then I decided to withdraw the request because it was with the Chucky avatar.
Oh yeah.
But it was the one that was saying it was called "Black People Can Be Racist. Stop lying to yourself."
Mm.
And that one was, which is weird because I don't think that should be all that controversial.
Well, I mean, because I don't know. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and treat them like I would any other corporation, but Google. I'm concerned that, and I'm always, and again, it's my experiences on in the past 3 or 4 years that's make me super paranoid when it comes to platforms fucking with each other. I mean, for God's sakes, 4chan gets sold off, and Moot started heavily moderation during the GamerGate fiasco, just because he knew Anita.
Yeah,
That
but at the same time,
yeah
she had political connections, and
yeah
that was during the Democrats' reign of terror.
yeah
The whole second term of Obama's presidency was like fucking totalitarian in terms of media, and if you really look back at what happened, and those people just don't have the same power that they do anymore, which is why I think like the whole PewDiePie thing was the PewDiePie thing was such a big deal because it was them bluffing.
yeah. They did try. They did really kind of try to throw at him. They just flung shit at the wall.
Yeah, and
And
it was like, and it didn't really work that well.
no, it didn't. And you know, it's but that's my concern though, because these guys are so desperate now. I don't know where. I don't know how much for because
It's the boy who cries wolf, and people will stop listening to them.
yeah. Well, for them, it's a matter of survival. But for those that are like the genuine SJWs, those guys concern me because they've gotten more violent. They've gotten more uh, trigger happy. They've gotten I don't know.
But the other side has gotten way better at dealing with them too.
Yeah.
Like the fucking base stick man is our base
Well, I mean,
stick man probably inspired hundreds of people to make
fuck.
little shields and shit.
Well, yeah. Have you been hearing? Because today there was a kerfuffle at a pro-Trump rally. A bunch of people got into it with fucking Antifa. They said, "Fuck it, we're tired of this shit," and they started kicking their shit in. It was basically like, I don't know, 30 Antifa versus 50 or so Trump supporters, and they got their fucking shit stomped. I mean, but my fear is, I mean, everyone's seen the footage from the inauguration, the inauguration riot. I Like, I mean, you were there during the Milo thing. You were there when the guy got shot, or you were at the place that the guy got shot during Milo's visit.
Yeah, I was, and we heard it. Um, yeah, but these people, I mean, they're gonna run out of steam. And also, okay, the video that I'm making that I recorded and didn't upload yet, I have a really good idea of how to deal with some of these people, like their online venom.
Yeah.
And this is what the video is about. When they start lying about you, start lying about them immediately. And I've done it twice already, and it's been totally successful, what I was trying to accomplish. One guy, I started arguing with him on my friend's timeline. I didn't know this guy, and he was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" So he went and looked at my timeline and saw that I, criticized feminism. So he posted, "Oh, well, you shouldn't listen to this Prince guy because he's totally a misogynist and he hates women." And so I thought for a second, I was like, should I try to refute that and try to? But I was like, wait, but that's no, because he's not behaving rationally. This is not somebody who is willing to be rational. This is somebody who is willing to lie.
Yeah.
So instead, I said, I was like, wait, I can do that too. And so I said, that's very I said, don't send me threats. That's not acceptable. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, you sent me a threat to my inbox. You said that you were going to gay bash me. I can only assume that this guy thinks that I hate women because I'm gay. If you ever threaten me again, I'm going to call the cops. And he was like, what are you talking? What? I didn't send you a threat. And I was like, yes, you did. And if you send me another one, I'm going to call the cops. And he posts a bunch of times. And then after a little bit, I'm like, okay, I was lying. That's why you don't fucking lie about people on the internet.
Yep.
And the guy calmed down.
Yeah.
Because he realized in that little instant, because he got scared, because all these people could be like, oh shit, they could come for him next. And I did the same thing with a guy today. The guy tried to call me a Nazi really because I asked him if he was talking. A friend of mine shared a Milo meme. It was just
Yeah.
one of those video things. And he was like, really, Milo? And I was like, have you ever actually listened to Milo? I'm just curious. And no, if you say I've listened to him enough to know everything I need to know, that's not an answer because
Oh, I've called the multiple people out about that.
yeah. And so he was like, yes, I've listened to him enough to know that he supports eugenics and that blah blah blah. And so the answer is no. And I'm like, oh my god, you're extremely predictable. And he's like, well, I'm guessing you're a Nazi too. Nazi say what? And then I said, it is not acceptable to threaten me, blah, blah, blah. I did the same fucking thing. And he was like, what actually, no, actually with this guy, I said, yeah, you want to say that to my face, motherfucker? Like, you want to call me a Nazi to my face? And he was like,
I'd play the Jewish card. I'd say, oy vey, guy, you can't do that. Or whatever.
yeah.
I'd make it up like that. And I'd fuck with him like that. Cause he
Yeah.
said, oh,
But I think the best thing to do is to lie and say they sent a threat. And
no.
because once they start calling you a Nazi, then you can say that they threatened you, and that will seem realistic because these guys do, like they are violent and they are saying punch a Nazi all the time. And so and it's a lie, then the guy's like, oh shit, these people think that I'm sending threats and no one is going to believe me and then they're going to get scared. And then you come clean and say, hey, I did lie about you, but this is why you shouldn't start calling people Nazis on the internet, because then people will believe that you're a fanatic, and then people will believe you send threats, and you could easily doctor a private message to make it look like you did send one.
Well,
Easily,
yeah.
and so if there's ways to deal with these people with their insanity, and they're losing power, and I think that people are coming up with more and more ways to deal with them. I think we have to keep doing it. I mean, we have to be diligent about it.
Yeah.
But we ultimately they are losing, and it's going to be a while before they're all gone, and we can move on, and probably some crazy shit's going to happen, and we're going to move on to the next phase of culture.
Speaking of culture, because it's a nice little segue for what I wanted to talk about in that last little segment I want to talk about. So you and I are both big fans of anime, at least Ghost in the Shell. We're both
Yeah.
fans of it. And you've talked about this a couple times in your channel. What do you think of the whole reaction people have had to this movie so far? The casting in general.
It's fucking dumb.
Yeah, but I mean,
ridiculously dumb.
yeah.
Ridiculously dumb, because it's putting the relationship between Japan and America and trying to like make it about something, like it's trying to act like America exploits Japan and colonize Japan. Fucking shut the fuck up. Japan can take care of itself. Like,
well, yeah. I mean,
it's like,
for those that don't know what we're talking about here, there was a kerfuffle with the Ghost in the Shell movie, and certain people were pissed off that Scarlett Johansson, a white woman, is playing a cyborg that people tend to ascribe to being Japanese, just because of her name, even though we know that's not really her name in the first place, right? It's been a while since I watched the show, or the movie, or any of it.
yeah, something like that. So she's full cyborg, and she's never had a real body, and it takes place in 2034, and Japanese people always have, like, as long as I've been alive, have been really into like bleaching their hair and trying to have styles that look like Western stuff, just because
Well, I mean, manga in general. I think we should talk about this. The characters there tend to be ethnically ambiguous for the most part.
yeah.
I mean, they really do.
Yeah, it's a really dumb thing. And what pisses me off the most about it is that, like, I really I think that Ghost in the Shell is if you're really into the plot of it and everything, it's the type of thing that like you really hope as many people watch this as possible because it gives a really accurate vision of what the future really might be like in 20 or 30 years or whatever. And I guess now it's like about 20, but when I was when the show came out, the show is what it's was the really cool part. It's Ghost in the Shell standalone complex is what everybody should watch.
Yeah,
And
it goes deep into the concepts and themes. It's
yeah, it's about the three major tenets of it are cyber brain technology, where everybody is constantly linked to the internet at all times, and to the point where you can like hack each other's eyes and make yourself invisible to them. And then cyborg technology, people are cyborgs and have they're super strong and heavy and that kind of thing. And then also there's artificial intelligence, and they have the little Tachikoma tanks, which are really funny characters. They're like kind of like little blue spider tank things, and they talk like children, and they have artificial intelligence. And at first, they work with the police force, and they go around and do missions, and they're like, hey, Tachikoma's this way. And they're like, okay, we'll follow. We're right on it. Um, and it's this weird kind of thing where as the plot progresses, the Tachikomas learn more and more, and they start becoming like more and more aware of existence to the point where they start like asking strange philosophical questions, and they're like, what does it mean to die? Because I am an AI and my memory is being written outside of my body. That means that even if I die, somebody can always recover me. And they just start asking these and they're like, whoa, what's going on? And then it gets to the point where the Tachikomas are like breaking out at night and like spying on other people and like trying to figure out stuff. And they're like, whoa, we need to disable them. Like they can't actually be on the team anymore because we don't know what they're going to do. And they end up having their own little plot line. It's really, really cool. And
yeah,
if people just watched this and started to like become familiar with the technological concepts, I think it would really help them about in terms of like a lot. It really it red pilled me in a certain way when I watched it as a young adult. And so I want as many people to see this as possible. And it's like the SJWs, they don't want people red pilled. And so I can't help but sort of think that like it's not even about racism or anything. Like that's just overblown because they don't want people watching this because it's a movie that might red pill people in a more advanced way than people are even talking about.
well, yeah. I mean, it's like it's like them watching. I grew up. I write fantasy. That's kind of what I do, and there's been this huge kind of stifling in that area of literature for a while. Like only a certain amount of things are allowed to be written about, and I seriously think it's because they want some form of hegemony there. Hegemony there. They kind of don't want different ideas to be explored, and they don't want they kind of just want people that are, yeah, like you were saying, stay asleep, don't get. They want the blue pills to be shoved, down their throats that much.
Hmm.
I mean, because I mean, I do write stories about race, and it's more about class though that I found out to be interesting. For example, like I have a the thing I'm working on right now. There's a character. There were two characters. One, they're both. It's set in a medieval fantasy world. I've talked about this a couple of times, but yeah, the two characters are both bastard children, but one's a highborn bastard. Both of his parents were like super wealthy and stuff,
Hmm.
and of highborn status and whatnot, and the other isn't. So uh, similar outcomes, but they're both different, and they're also different races. One's mixed race, one's half black and half white, and the other is white. and I basically commented on that. One's had a, the poorer kids had a harder life. He's got the shit kicked out of him. He's, had to work for everything in his life. And the other kid, mixed race, and as much as he is has pretty much had everything handed to him. And I wanted to make a comment on it, saying it's not so much to do with race as it does with where you're from,
Mm.
and what.
Okay, so Casey's gone. I'm gonna talk a little bit. Yeah. Um, he wanted me to finish talking about fourth wave feminism at a certain point. Fourth wave feminism is basically internet and social media driven feminism, but it also had a lot more political backing than third wave feminism. And I think it's sort of what happened when Hillary Clinton. Uh, oh, here he is.
Yeah. Well, fucking, I hate this goddamn thing. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry about this because it shouldn't be happening. I have to
It's
check
fine.
the software after this. But yeah, no, were you looking at questions from the chat, or
No, I was just talking about fourth wave feminism.
fourth wave feminism? Yeah. Well, that the fourth wave feminism kind of was the apex of trying to get more into the cultural aspect, I think.
Yeah, it's like sort of like when they took all of the theories from third wave feminism and tried to conquer the world with them by way of social media and blogging, basically. And
They're such killjoys too.
yeah,
They just ruin everything.
yeah, and they know it. They make jokes about it. They're like, "Oh, we're feminist killjoys, ha 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 ha!"
It's
And
like, oh,
it's
you
like,
fucking bitches. I hate that shit. And you know what the worst thing to come out of fourth wave feminism? The male feminist.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they exist. They kind of existed during the third wave, but they were like,
But not like this.
no, not
Not,
like the way they are now. No, they're insane now. They're so bad.
I would love to find out what it takes to actually make one of these guys the way they are. I mean, I could make up theories, but until I can actually say, yeah, this is why.
Sargon's video about the three different types of male feminists was really good.
Yeah.
And I think there might be a few more, but the first one was the guy who's just kind of like, feminine and faggy, and it's easy to convince this guy that feminism is good because he's not good at being a man.
Yeah.
And and it's like, oh, okay, well, like, cool, if all the straight dudes will stop picking on me, yay, that's good. So it's easy to get under this guy's skin, and that's definitely true with a lot of gay guys. It's the worst with gay guys. Like, fucking feminists they whisper in their ear and they say, the only reason that you get beat up is because you're femme. It's because you seem feminine. Because the straight guy, or not the straight guys, the gay guys who don't seem gay, they don't get picked on. And it's like, yeah, because no one knows they're gay. It's just because they don't get singled out. It's because they're not visibly gay. Um, and then they say that it's like, oh, the reason you can't get dates is because gay guys are misogynistic, and it's like, no, it's just because you're not sexy. Trust me, if you were hot enough, you could be slightly girly, you know. Um, and then the other thing is that, like, the next type of male feminist is the type of dude that is so hyper obsessed with altruism and like trying to be nice and like not harm anybody that he will take up feminism just because he's basically constantly walking on eggshells, and he's probably never even remotely done anything wrong to women, but like he's just obsessed with like trying to be the nice guy. And he may or may not be slightly femme, but that's his MO overall, is like trying to be a good Samaritan. And there are those types of guys. And then there's the third type of male feminist, which is the person who has really done something wrong and might actually be a total misogynist. And there's definitely those dudes. These are the guys that like get obsessively angry at anti-feminists and start like, maybe sending threats to female anti-feminists
Yeah.
because they're psycho.
Yeah.
And then it's like, like it turns out that they actually like had some sort of date rape issue that, like maybe they date raped someone and now they're trying to like repent for it or whatever. And um yeah.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, I don't know. Fourth wave feminism is just it's going to cause problems because I don't see any end to
He doesn't see any end to it, but okay. You don't
dying
see any
off.
end to it.
Yeah, I feel like that they're just dying off, but I disagree. I think it's I don't know.
Well, okay, so one of the things is I think that I think that regardless of whether it's feminism or if it's something else, there's always going to be every 20 years or so, it's going to be easy for a political movement to come along and try to rally all the people that think they had a rough go of it. Like all the people who think that life was unfair due to financial circumstances or due to racial circumstances or due to gender and sexuality, all the, whatever. And there can be somebody who pretends to look out for the little guy and, that's their whole selling point. And it's easy to rally a bunch of people around that. You get them all together, you get them all together, you get them all together. But as long as that fucking leader, and that's a very manipulative thing to do, to rally people under that, because it's like, oh yeah, well, now that you're leading us, where the fuck are we going? And it's usually like, well, we're going for me to be in power. Yeah, but then what? I'll be in power. Like they don't they don't have like a an actual great goal to do
Yeah,
anything. Like what the fuck was Hillary Clinton going to do? And thank God she didn't win. And like what happened when Joseph Stalin won? That like he did that. Like he's like all you people are the prolet or the proletariats and
yeah.
so
Bourgeoisie and fucking yeah,
yeah. And then it's like, well, now, okay, now you're in charge, Joseph Stalin. What do we do? Well, let's kill all the productive farmers. How about that? Yeah. And then what? We'll starve because there's no food, you know? So, like that shit happens. And, but ultimately, usually these people fail, like in the case of Hillary Clinton and in the case of the late 90s. They had done that same thing. They had done all the race baiting was really big, and a little bit with gay people, and definitely with feminism. And then they had convinced all those people that they wanted to vote for Al Gore, and Al Gore lost. And they kind of stuck around for a little while, but most people realized, like, wait, we lost. And as soon as as soon as something happens, they turn their back on it and they regret it. Like once people decide to no longer be PC, after PC changes, like it's not politically correct. What was PC in 2015 is already no longer PC. Like if you look at the insanity coming from 2015,
yeah.
that shit already doesn't fly. Like people will already mock you. Like, oh, what you're trying to talk about? You're trying to accuse somebody of sending you a rape threat because he told you that over the internet. You can't get away with the same shit. You can't get away with the same shit. And also they fight with each other like starving piranhas. They do
Yeah.
that. Like, I talk to people. I was talking to this black trans woman in the Bay Area who's a DJ who formed like a whole DJ crew, like she was the head of it, who I was kind of friends with. I talked to her just a few nights ago. All her friends, they're all at each other's throats. They're all like backstabbing each other and there's all this drama and all this shit. Like, yeah, they all fucking hate each other. So all these people are there's gonna come a point where they're just like, wait, you know what? grievance mongering doesn't work. It didn't get us anywhere. And once they decide to turn their back on it, they're going to try to pretend like it never happened. And that's going to come sooner than later. You know, there's going to be some people that never get over it, but those people are going to be the least cool people ever. They're going to be just these lame, you know, Kyle's mom from South Park that like, you know, that's all they are. And everything will be different, but there will be new things to care about. Like these will have new problems. Like obviously we can already tell that Trump's administration is not going to be just, you know, sunshine and lollipops. Like it's already, there's already going to be weirdness with it. And you know, there's probably going to be a new war. There's probably going to be some sort of new it keeps losing, coming out. So yeah, in the 90s we had a movie called PCU, which was it was about a college that was overrun with SJWs, and it's interesting. Like you watch it, and it's as if they predicted the SJW stuff of today. Hey, you're back.
Yeah, fuck this. I remember PCU.
Yeah, it was a funny movie actually, and it was very accurate to the SJW mentality, and it was in the 90s. And very not long after that, that movie would have not been funny, because it would have been like, what, people don't act like this? Yeah, they do, but only ever so often. And once it stops being cool, it stops being cool really quickly, and everybody hates it. And you know, and not just that, the people who were really bad, you know, like the Cat Blacks and the Anita Sarkeesians of the world, they get thrown into the trash. Like everybody is like, we had enough of you, you fucking cunt. Like you're gone. And you know, and like that person is shown the door, and they're screaming, and they're like, well, you're all just a bunch of racists and transphobic, and they're like, yep, we heard enough of you. Fuck off, go to hell. And it's, you know, and that person goes outside and you slams the door in their face, and they scream and they scream, and that's what happens. It doesn't last forever.
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I'm just cynical sometimes when it comes to stuff on the internet and social movements in general. I mean,
Well, yeah, but you came of age during, like, so you're 22?
yeah.
Okay. So you were 18. Um, when you were first starting to get into the internet, things were like kind of cool. There was freedom. But people, it was a sort of a PC climate because we had just elected our first black president, and you know, so people were like automatically being kind of PC. But like when you were 18 to 22 is when it all got crazy, and it was like oppressive. Like, you know, free speech was not on the agenda. It was, you know, trying to silence people, and that's what your experience of, like, I've tried to explain this in the past. This one guy who was an actual white nationalist I talked to for a while, and he thinks, like, in his reality, he's like 18.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that, you know, because of the massive amount of abuse that white people have suffered over the past 4 or 5 years, that has shaped his worldview. And he thinks that racial minorities unanimously hate white people, and if they had the chance, they would make us their slaves, or they would exterminate us because of the relentless racism towards white people. That was not always the case at all. There was a long period of social media and media when, if you were like racist to anyone, like actually racist, you know, like if you were actually, you know, the way that so many like Black Lives Matter people are racist to white people. If you were like that, you would be so uncool. You know, like you can make a stupid joke, fine. But
Yeah.
if it was clear that you're really racist, like you actually hate, it would be like, no, 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 fuck this. Like you would expect, you
Yes.
know, like you would expect people to socially ostracize you. Like, no, you don't just hate on someone because of their fucking skin color. That's fucking retarded. I don't say that word much, but like if you act like that, you're a fucking retard. Like, like you don't go into a party, like, now I can be in Seattle, which one of the whitest cities, and be hanging out with some black guy at like some not hanging out, but like talking to a black guy at a bar that I just met, buy him a Jello shot because there's a deal where you get three for a lot cheaper,
Yeah.
and right after I give it to him, he makes some comment about white privilege. Like I'm supposed to go like, oh, I know, I hate white privilege. Like, shut the fuck up. I just bought you a Jello shot, you fucking piece of shit. Who the fuck do you think you are? You know? Like, and
Mhm.
that's what it's like these days. So I can understand if
Well,
you
I mean, it's not just that. Look, I could kind of deal with if it was like an older, if it was like my generation versus someone else, but it's fucking my generation doing most of the shit. And
but
it,
but
and
they'll get over it, man. They will because like they are already like, see, you don't know this because you don't hang out with that type of person. But those are people like, remember how it felt, how like during Gamergate, it felt like every time you tried to explain anything, you were just pounding your head against a brick wall.
yeah.
Like it was like, no, but like you don't understand this. Anita Sarkeesian, she's a liar. And people will be like, you're a misogynist, mansplaining. And you'd be like, no, but like that kind of shit, like the way you felt.
Yeah.
Those people are gonna they're but they're gonna actually be wrong. Like they're gonna start being like, no, but like Trump won because of white privilege and blah, and people will be like, shut the fuck up. No, no, he won because you're a racist. And be like, no, because blah blah blah. And be like, and these people will they'll start beating their head against the wall. And that's what's gonna happen over and over. And they're gonna realize that they can actually stop because they are actually wrong. And once they realize that they're wrong, they'll stop. But they're going to pretend it didn't happen. But things will change, and it will change dramatically. I mean, you're too young to really remember a cultural shift, but it will. I promise you. Like, there's going to be such a dramatic cultural shift, and you're on the right side of it. So, like it'll be less climactic because it will just kind of be like the way that you've always been will start to become more and more the norm, you know? And it will be subtle and whatever. And then by the time it changes again, like you'll be like slightly unaware of it. It'll be like there's a grave disturbance of the force, but you won't really understand what's going on, and that's just how things are. Like they'll come up with a new strategy of turning each other against each other, and like I mean, okay, for example, what's the easiest way for me to think of it? What's going to happen is I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of Islamic war, like new fucking like, okay, we need to really take on ISIS. Russia and the USA combined to like seriously kick some ass.
Yeah.
Um and we do that and people are like fine with that for whatever reason. Probably another terrorist attack will happen, like some
Well,
shit.
another 9/11's bound to happen. That's
Yeah,
the scary thing.
something like that. And then what's going to happen is that war, people are going to be divided, but that war is going to probably largely end up not being just a war, but being a profit machine for politicians and weapons manufacturers that they collude with. Just because that's the nature of wars these days.
Mhm.
They're not just wars to with a clear end goal. They're actual like business endeavors.
You
And
see,
once that war goes on for a while, and if Trump gets reelected, which he probably will, or if his successor gets reelected, whoever,
Yeah.
runs, then the next term in 4 years, then people will start. They're going to want to continue this war because some people are going to be benefiting from it, and then they'll try to. There'll be some people that'll say, "Hey, we should get out of this war. This is a bad war. The war in Iran or something. I don't know what it is." And we'll say, "Get out of the war in Iran. Get out of Iran. Get out of Iran." And then there'll be a new weird movement where a bunch of Christian propaganda becomes popular again, and people will say that you're anti-Christian if you want to get out of Iran, and that'll become the new thing. That'll become the new argument, and it'll be this weird thing where it'll be like, oh, fuck if I care if I'm Christian, and people. And then it turns out that Christians can get you censored on YouTube, and it'll be like, oh shit. um, yeah.
Again and again and again.
So yeah. So like oddly, there'll be like odd the way that social justice warriors were able to get people censored. Some other group of people will be able to get people censored,
Mm-hmm.
and it will have different motivations. And because yeah, like.
Well, you see, I got to tell you what I see happening, because I do agree
Well,
that
and
there.
I have to piss. So just tell me it while I mute myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what I mean. What I mean is, looking at this next up and coming generation, Generation Z, which is, I think it's the most conservative generation since, um, since World War II, I believe, and then also combine that with the social alienation people are feeling, towards, um, you know, basically towards society in general, um, which again mirrors World War II. I think I don't think you're going to see another modern war like we've seen in the past, like the Iraq War. Yeah, there will be profiteering, but I think it will much more. If the situation in Europe doesn't, I like, again, I have to refer to this as the situation in Europe, because Europe plays, again, like many times in history, plays a central role. If Europe doesn't unfuck itself within the next decade or so, um, you are likely to see a caliphate, or a Fifth Reich. That's another fear I have, especially in Germany. If Merkel and her party don't redirect the ship, or if someone doesn't replace them, and fix the huge problems, the huge immigration and cultural problems of that nation, I'm concerned that the right's reaction will be so it'll be so overreaching that you actually end up with another Hitler character, like a legit Hitler. Not, oh my god, this person I disagree with his Hitler. No, I mean like a legitimate. Let's go. No, maybe they won't kill the Jews, but they'll definitely kill the Muslims this time.
Mhm.
That's my fear.
Yeah,
And
or anyone of Arab descent or
or
something.
or if anyone of Arab descent, or and the other, like I said, the other side is, holy shit, we have a caliphate now, and this caliphate has fucking nukes. Do we submit to them now? And that's my fear, is that I think World War III is within the next generation or two. I legitimately think that. I know I don't think people are going to use nukes, because I think no side is that genocidal. No, people will say, yeah, I'm willing to die for my profit, but when it comes to it, someone's going to shoot that guy in the face. The guy that has that little bit of doubt is going to shoot that motherfucker with his hand on the gun.
Mhm.
It was the same thing that happened during World War II. There was that assassination attempt on Hitler. It was based off, the movie Fury was based off of it. But that always happened. But we are going to see another cataclysmic war, and within my lifetime. That's what scares me, because we've gone so far without it. Except this time, I don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be a group of nations. I think it'll be an ideology. It's basically the culture where we've been fighting for maybe the past. It'll basically be hardcore fundamentalist Islamism versus Western values, and or I shouldn't say Western values, pretty much everything else. And I know that that comes off as ridiculous, but I'm scared now because this. I think these attacks that we've seen, we've had two within this week, both in London, and that scares me now because that is a critical ally in NATO. That is a critical ally in the West. It's our I guess our cousin is how it's often described. And my concern is if that place becomes predominantly Islamic, which it does, people say that, they stop having kids after a certain time. Maybe that was true when they were integrating. They're not anymore. And so they're going to try to outbreed or convert the native population. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not an ethno-nationalist. I'm a guy that says you can have whatever skin color you want in your society, whatever ethnic group you want, but you have to make them, you have to make them assimilate. And so you avoid shit like this. You avoid potential cataclysmic uh, interactions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I one of the things I wonder though, and this is what I hope,
Yeah.
is whether what we're going through right now is going to be uh an ideological war when it's actually a war of ideas and there's not all that much bloodshed, and somehow we can avoid World War III by, you know, waking up the masses that, for example, we need to clamp down on intersectional feminism because it's nonsense and it's actual bigotry itself.
Mhm.
To try to, instead of looking at somebody's individual characteristics and their hardships in life, to instead try to like easily package them into, like different generalizations and blah blah blah. Like that's bigoted. That like it's a reduction of what the dynamics of the human life actually is, and
Yeah.
by doing that's bigoted. So we have to get rid of that idea. And when people start to actually get rid of Islam and like really discuss it, and there might be like a mass awakening of secularized people,
Mhm.
and that's what I wonder and I hope for. I hope that is the case.
I hope for it too, but even if we do, we've had two cataclysms in the past, and we've kind of since the advent of the nuclear option, we've kind of set ourselves up for one again. Now, again, I'll say this again. I think people are. I mean, for years we've had fiction about nuclear war. I mean, the whole Fallout franchise is built on it. A bit more fantastical, but it's still a terrifying reality. Now, I personally think it'll be still more conventional thing, just because people are afraid of annihilation. Now, I think when it comes to your idea of a culture war or an intellectual war, I think that will happen, but I think it'll happen more in the West than it will be in places it really does need to happen. I don't think the climate is going to be there until maybe a couple generations down the line. And I really think the how you spark something like that to happen in the Arab world is that you really have to promote secularity here in the West. You cannot do what Sadiq Khan and every
Linda Sarsour.
Linda Sassor or any of these dumb bastards are doing. You cannot be this tolerant. You have to actively criticize religion. And now, I'm gonna piss off some friends of mine on the right. That includes Christianity, but I would say less heavy-handed than you do with Islam, because Christianity has got its shit kicked in for the last 500 years. Since the Reformation, it's progressively got its shit stomped in. Now, Islam really hasn't. It lacks the appropriate fear of rationality that I think that Christianity does have. Now, I think that you can do that, and I see some people doing it. Like you have Majid Nawaz, who I respect a lot. I mean, I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I do respect his attempt to try to modernize things. But I keep thinking, I keep wanting to say to him, is like, dude, you have a uphill battle, because I think he's overly optimistic, in my opinion. I think he does need to take a more. He needs to stop trying to do a scalpel and start really swinging a sword around and start chopping this thing down like a forest. He really he needs to attack a lot of things. Now I don't think he's the guy to do it, since he himself is he's kind of like Milo. He's a cultural Muslim. He said it himself. He is a Muslim in pretty much just culture. And I think, and I those guys I can really tolerate, because they're not zealots. You know what I mean? I can deal with them, but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm just concerned about, because it's I don't know. It just it's worrying. I see a trend with my generation, not being the generation to actually deal with this. I think the generation after us, I have a lot of hope for the next generation after us. I do have hope for them, because I think they've seen the crazy shit during both these past two, both this almost 20 years, and I think they've seen both sides kind of really wrestle with it, and so we might have a I firmly believe this. I think we are going to see the next great generation after us. I think Generation Z is going to be that.
Mm.
And so that I think I'm going to end it there, because it's on a more hopeful note, and my battery's almost dead.
Okay.
So yeah, I want to thank you for coming on here. We kind of covered a lot of things. We kind of just had a chin wag, as it were. But I enjoy this, man.
Yeah.
So do you want to show your channel real quick?
Well, I'm Prince of Queens, and yeah. So if you guys haven't already subscribed to my channel, please go check it out. I give good tips for how to argue on the internet with people.
Yeah. Also, you want to do the Twitter too, or do you want me to?
Oh, I'm hashtag Prince of Queens with 2 S's at the end.
Yeah. So also, I'll be leaving a GoFundMe link in the description. So if you guys want to bring him here, and maybe I can do a, I don't know, I should do something with you to give a little bit of incentive. Maybe not an official one, but one for the listeners. Let's say I was gonna drink.
You will get into a speedo, and I'll throw water balloons at you in front of a
Yeah.
camera. And if somehow we reach the donation, and yeah, that something like that.
Yeah.
Or I'll at least throw water balloons at you. I'm liking the water balloons thing.
Yeah. I'll do the water balloons thing. We can film and put it online. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll leave the link there, and we'll do that too. So
we'll see if I'm a good water balloon shot. I might need like 20 before I actually hit you.
Yeah, but no, we'll set that up, and yeah. Again, thanks for coming on. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion, and to everyone watching, see you guys next week. Next week it'll be back to the regular programming. I'll be talking. We'll actually be doing something fun tomorrow. Next week. Other than no, this was great. But no, next week we'll be doing a movie watching. We'll be watching the Chris Chan documentary. I'll have my friend Emily on. I might have some other people on if I can get them. But yeah, thank you and good night.
Okay, bye.